Another place, describes so accurately what happened near the farm where Shin Wanchue was, including the location. It was possible that not only did they not rescue her in the first place, but they would think that there was something wrong with her, that she was an interloper or a spy sabotaging, and detain her. If they simply detained her and sent people to rescue her, as she said, then it would be fine. After the people were rescued, at least her innocence could be proved. But I was afraid that after detaining her, they would not rescue her due to lack of manpower, which would delay things. Xia Huanhuan didn't dare to take the risk. After thinking about it, she could only wait until tomorrow at most. If Li Zhan didn't come back, she would go alone according to the original plan, saying that she was going to visit distant relatives whom she hadn't seen for many years. She had a space, so the blizzard should not be able to do anything to her. If she couldn't hold on any longer, she could go into the space to keep warm. There was also spiritual spring water to drink, so she was not afraid. As long as she could get to the place where Shen Wanxue and Rong Jinbang were trapped, even if she couldn't bring Shen Wanxue and Rong Jinbang into the space, at least she could give them some warm things and food. Moreover, she could persuade them to abandon the flock and run for their lives first. It would be best if they could avoid the group of horse thieves. At worst, if they still met them, at least she could delay some time to deal with them until Li Zhan and the others arrived. Moreover, she still had the wooden barn in her hand, so she could only take a gamble. At night, Xiaoma really came to call Xia Huanhuan have dinner, and the battalion commander of the garrison also came to greet her. Xia Huanhuan thought about it and said tentatively, "Battalion commander, when I came here by bus from Hohhot, I heard a fellow villager on the bus say that there was a farm called Fengshou Farm. The disaster nearby was quite serious this year. It seemed that someone was trapped by the snowstorm while herding a flock of sheep. Did they send people over there to rescue them?" The battalion commander looked at her strangely at first, and then said, "The situation on that farm over there is more complicated. They have been hit by the disaster, so they must be rescued. However, there are still many poor and lower middle-class herdsmen who have been severely affected by the disaster, so we can only let them wait. However, you are an ignorant country wife, so don't ask such questions again in the future." Xia Huanhuan pretended to be at a loss after hearing this. Took over the topic. However, she also figured out the attitude of the top leader here, and told the camp that she had completely abandoned the plan of letting the camp rescue people. It snowed heavily again that night, and it snowed all night. By the next morning, the snow outside the yurt was knee-deep. Breakfast was still milk tea, and there was some hand-pulled mutton soup, and fried rice at noon. In the afternoon, the snow began to fall again. Xia Huanhuan mentioned a place near the camp called Yanghe Valley, saying that she was going to visit relatives, and if Li Zhan came back, she asked them to bring a message to Li Zhan, saying that she went to see Yanshen. The camp seemed not far away, and there was no disaster there, so she didn't say anything and asked Xiao Ma to drive the people there. Xia Huanhuan declined, but finally agreed to let her go. Anyway, the place she mentioned was located between the camp and the farm, which could save some time. After arriving at Yanghe Valley and sending Xiao Ma away, Xia Huanhuan walked towards the farm without stopping. When she reached an uninhabited area, she directly dragged the jeep out of the space and then drove towards the farm where Shen Wanxue and the others were. When she was stockpiling supplies, she specially prepared tires for use in the snow, and the space can change tires with a thought. Unfortunately, not long after she left, because of the heavy snowstorm, the jeep could not move at all, and finally had to put the car back into the space and walk on the way. Fortunately, she met a family who was moving in the wind and snow on the road. The ox cart carried her for a while before she finally arrived at the farm. Xia Huanhuan arrived at the gate of the farm and showed a forged letter of introduction to the old man who was guarding the gate, saying that she was here to visit relatives. She got the letter of introduction from the village to visit relatives in the military base here. If she brought the real letter of introduction directly, if it was checked, it would be easy to trace it to Li Zhan, so it was safer to use a fake letter of introduction. The old man guarding the gate stared at her suspiciously. It was snowing heavily, and it was the end of the year. It was really strange that someone would come to visit the people on the farm, and she was a pretty young wife. "Your name is Dongwan? Who do you want to see?" Is there a girl named Shen Wanxue who just transferred here in July or August this year, and her husband, who should be Rong Jinbang? Xia Huanhuan said. The old man at the gate asked, Who are you to them? Xia Huanhuan naturally couldn't tell the truth, so she said, This is my distant aunt. I also came here to visit my uncle, and by the way, I came to see this aunt. Excuse me, are they on the farm now? The old man at the gate no longer doubted and said, Then wait, I'll ask for you. After saying that, he took the letter of introduction and left. After a while, the old man who was guarding the gate came back and said, The two people you found went out to herd sheep 3 days ago with dry food. They wanted to send the sheep to a nearby pasture that can keep the sheep warm. Calculating the time, it will take another 2 days for them to come back. Xia Huanhuan's heart trembled. According to the situation in the dream, Shen Wanxue and Rong Jinbang had indeed been trapped in the blizzard for several days. She had originally imagined that it would be best if they had not set out when she arrived at the farm. If they had already walked for 2 or 3 days, she would not be able to catch up anyway. Therefore, the only way was to find out the direction they were going as soon as possible, so that she could find them as quickly as possible. She asked quickly, Is that so? Then let me ask again. Where is the ranch they're going to? I have a map here, please tell me the address, and I will go directly to the ranch to find them. The old man who was guarding the door glanced at the map she took out and said, I don't understand this thing. Just go south from here about 50 kilometers. If it doesn't snow, you can get there in a day. But it has been snowing heavily these days, and it's good to walk 10 miles a day. After hearing this, Xia Huanhuan thanked him and hurriedly walked towards the south. The grassland was endless, and it was quite difficult to tell the direction. Fortunately, she had a compass, so she didn't worry. Even though the temperature was nearly 10 degrees below zero, it was really too cold to bear. She still used the space. When it was too cold, she would go into the space to hide for a while before coming out. She also had thick down jackets and coats made of animal skins wrapped in 3 layers. Moreover, the off-road jeep could not move, so she got a mule from the space and carried herself. Even so, it was extremely difficult to walk. Xia Huanhuan was getting more and more anxious. According to the old man who was watching the door, Shen Wanxue and the others had been on the road for 3 days. Even if they brought enough dry food, such a low temperature and long-term exposure to the outside, it can almost be said that their lives are in danger at any time. However, no matter how anxious she was, she could only look for them bit by bit. Until the daytime of the 29th day of the 12th lunar month, she searched all the way to the ranch. She arrived at the ranch and didn't meet anyone. Xia Huanhuan was almost crazy. Then she thought that Shen Wanxue and the others might have lost their way in the blizzard and went astray. If that was the case, the range would be too large, and any direction could be possible. How could she find them? And time did not allow. Xia Huanhuan closed her eyes and forced herself to calm down. She remembered that in her dream, Shen Wanxue and Rong Jinbang were hiding in a small hollow surrounded by rocks on 3 sides. It was precisely because of the rocks that the wind was not strong in the hollow, and it was much warmer than outside. Otherwise, at their age, they lacked warm clothes and food, and it would be impossible for them to hold on until the bandits appeared. Thinking of this, she told the ranch people about the rocks she saw in her dream and asked them if they knew where the place was. After hearing this, the ranch people said immediately, Oh, are you talking about Sancher Mountain? That's what we call it here. Although it's just 3 big rocks, they are piled together to form a shelter. Some herdsmen have blocked the leaks with mud and felt and put animal skins inside. If a herdsman encounters a blizzard while grazing, if they are close, everyone will go there to take shelter. Xia Huanhuan was so anxious that she interrupted the man and asked, Then, where is this Sancher Mountain? The ranch people said, Just go west from here about 10 kilometers away, and you can see it. Xia Huanhuan hurriedly ran towards Sancher Mountain again. This time, with a definite destination, she saw the 3 big rocks from a distance that night. However, at night, the blizzard that had never stopped was even heavier. Xia Huanhuan and the mule she was riding were almost blown away by the wind, and they were almost in a state of taking 1 step forward and 3 steps back. There was no other way. Xia Huanhuan could only hide in the space and wait for the big snowstorm to pass. It was not until the second half of the night that the heavy snow stopped, and there was even a tendency for the sky to clear up. The dark blue sky that had just cleared up was even full of stars, which was so beautiful as if it had never been violent and had never been raging with snow and wind. Xia Huanhuan did not dare to delay, and hurriedly came out of the space, looked up at the sky, and continued on her way. Although it was only the 29th day of the lunar year, there was still one day left before the 31st day of the lunar year, but it was better to find them early, and then hurry back to the farm, or the nearby ranch, to be completely safe. After walking for half the night, it was not until the early morning of the next day that they finally arrived near the three big rocks. Xia Huanhuan put her down jacket back into the space, but did not take the mule. She took out boiled eggs, beef jerky, cheese, fried rice, and other dry food from the space, as well as 2 blankets made of wild roe deer and rabbit skins, wrapped them in a bundle, and carried them on her back, and then hurried to Sancher Mountain. The bleating of the sheep could be heard from afar. Xia Huanhuan went around Sancher Mountain and saw that a dozen sheep were almost integrated with the snow. They were all huddled together and hiding behind the rocks. Outside, there was a wall made of snow, which should have been built by people, just like the igloos built by the Eskimos, to block the wind, snow, and cold currents as much as possible. Xia Huanhuan saw 2 gray-haired old people in the sheep at a glance. "Mom." Xia Huanhuan suddenly felt a sore nose and shouted. Shen Wanxue was stunned for a moment and looked in the direction of the voice in a daze. Rong Zhenbang was the same, looking at Xia Huanhuan in astonishment. How could a little girl suddenly appear in this icy and snowy place? And she was calling for her mother? Could she be the daughter of a nearby herdsman's family who came here to look for her mother? The conditions here are much more difficult than those in Qingshui village. Shen Wanxue's eye disease has recurred recently, but fortunately, if she looks carefully, she can still see people clearly. When she saw that it was Xia Huanhuan, she didn't believe it in her heart. Was she dying? That's why she had an illusion, as if she saw Huanhuan. However, this illusion shouted "Mom" again, and then ran towards them clumsily. When Xia Huanhuan came close, she grabbed Shen Wanxue's hand and choked up, "Mom, I finally found you." Shen Wanxue couldn't help but raise her hand to rub her eyes, looked at her in astonishment, and asked, "Huan?" "Huan?" Xia Huanhuan nodded quickly and said, "It's me. Are you all right? Do you have frostbite?" Rong Zhenbang looked at Xia Huanhuan and couldn't help asking, "You are Huanhuan?" He had naturally heard from Shen Wanxue that their long-lost son had started a family and his wife was called Xia Huanhuan, and that Xia Huanhuan had taken care of Shen Wanxue in the past 2 years. However, he never dreamed that he would meet her at this time. Xia Huanhuan glanced at Rong Zhenbang and opened her mouth, but she didn't dare to say hello. She just nodded shyly and said, "Yes, I am Xia Huanhuan." Only then did Shen Wanxue go from being astonished to choking up. She patted Xia Huanhuan's hand and asked, "Huanhuan, how did you find this place? Is there something wrong with Li Zhan?" Xia Huanhuan said quickly, "Mom, Li Zhan is fine. Don't worry about it. We'll talk about this later. I brought a lot of food. You should eat some first to fill your stomach. Oh, and here are the animal skins. Wrap them around your body first to keep warm." As he said this, he wrapped the animal skins around the 2 of them and gave them cheese, beef jerky, and boiled eggs to eat. When the 2 of them went out, they brought 5 days of dry food, which was originally enough for the round trip. Unexpectedly, they got lost and encountered a snowstorm. They were trapped here for several days. The dry food could only be eaten frugally by the 2 of them, so they were already starving. Therefore, when they saw these were ready to eat, they didn't care about being polite or anything and picked up the eggs, peeled them, and started eating. They were obviously very hungry, but the way they ate was still a little hasty and embarrassed, and they looked like they were wolfing down. Xia Huanhuan couldn't help but admire them in her heart. It was obvious that they had received a strict education since childhood, otherwise they would not be so down and out, and they still maintained such a temperament. Xia Huanhuan handed them the kettle, feeling distressed, and said, "Drink some milk tea. even if it's cold. And beef jerky is also more resistant to hunger. Shen Wanxue asked while eating. Huan, you haven't told me yet. How did you find this place? Although Xia Huan was in a hurry to get on the road, she also knew that Shen Wanxue and Rong Zhenbang probably had no strength at all. If they hurried on the road, they would soon be unable to bear it. Therefore, they had to wait until they had eaten and recovered their strength before they could continue on the road. Therefore, she explained softly, "You probably don't know that Li Zhan has been here to help rescue the herdsmen affected by the disaster. I thought that he hadn't been home for the New Year for 2 years, and I was afraid that he couldn't even have dumplings to eat on New Year's Eve, so I said I would come to see him and spend the New Year with him if we could. Later, I saw that the farm you were on was not too far from here, so I said I would come to see you by the way. Who knew that when we arrived at the farm, they said that you were going to drive the sheep to the ranch in the south to spend the winter, and you had been away for several days. I looked along the road to the ranch, but I found no one at the door. It was the people at the ranch who said that you might have lost your way and encountered a blizzard and were trapped. It was also said that there was a place called Sancher Mountain. If a blizzard suddenly occurred, many people would go there to take shelter temporarily. I thought I would try my luck and came here. I didn't expect to find you guys." Shen Wanxue and Rong Zhenbang all found it reasonable, so they didn't doubt it. Shen Wanxue said, "So that's how it is. Alas, I didn't expect Li Zhan to be here. If I have a chance to see him, it would be God's mercy." After saying that, she couldn't help wiping her tears. Rong Zhenbang quickly took her into his arms and said softly, "Look, you are sad when the child is not around, and you are even sadder when the child is close to you. If the child knew about it, he would be uneasy." As he spoke, he looked up at Xia Huan and whispered, "Don't cry first. Introduce me to Huan first." Shen Wanxue heard it, and then remembered that this was the first time Xia Huan met Rong Zhenbang, and she really forgot to introduce him. Therefore, she quickly wiped her tears and smiled. "Look at me. I forgot about it. Huan, this is my husband, Rong Zhenbang, Li Zhan's father. Zhenbang, this is the daughter-in-law that I mentioned to you, Xia Huan, whom our son brought home for us." Xia Huan blushed a little embarrassedly and called softly, "Dad." Rong Zhenbang was stunned for a moment, then he was nervous and at a loss, and his nose was sour. Who doesn't want to have children? It was only because the eldest son was lost that he and Shen Wanxue refused to have another child for so many years. Therefore, this can almost be said to be the first time in his life that he heard someone call him Dad. Hey, your mother and I. We are sorry to Li Zhan and you too. Thank you for taking care of Li Zhan." Xia Huan blushed and said a few humble words. Seeing that they had almost finished eating, she said, "Dad, Mom, can you leave? Let's drive the sheep to the pasture over there. I'm afraid the snow will fall again soon. Moreover, I heard from the people at the ranch that this area has been in turmoil recently and several herdsmen have been robbed by horse thieves. If we encounter such a situation, it would be a small matter if our sheep and belongings were robbed, but if they also rob us of our lives, we would be finished." Shen Wanxue and Rong Zhenbang nodded quickly, then stood up tremblingly and said, "Yes. We are also worried about this matter. During the past few days we have been trapped here. There have always been herdsmen taking shelter in the Santishan area, but it is also easy for horse thieves to target them, especially after a snowstorm, when the horse thieves will come to pick up the spoils. We must not lose this flock of sheep. Otherwise, I'm afraid it will be hard to explain to the farm." At that moment, the two of them, together with Xia Huan, drove the sheep, stepped on the knee-high snow, and walked tremblingly towards the pasture. Even on a snowy day, without the help of space, Xia Huan's trek was difficult, not to mention that Shen Wanxue and Rong Zhenbang were both almost 50 years old, so their speed was even slower. The three of them walked for about 2 hours, and they only walked about 3 kilometers. Xia Huan saw that the two were exhausted and out of breath, so she could only walk and rest for a while. Fortunately, today is New Year's Eve. According to the development of the dream, the horse thieves should find this place tomorrow, so there should be plenty of time. Just as she was thinking this, Xia Huan suddenly saw a group of white shadows coming towards her from afar in the snow. She stood up suddenly in shock, then quickly crouched down, her heart pounding. The horses those people rode were all gray or pure white, and they were covered with white woolen mantles. It was probably to keep out the cold and to hide their tracks in the snow. They didn't look like ordinary herdsmen.
Could it be
horse thieves? But she had clearly found Shen Wanshue and Rong Zhenbang before the first day of the new year, so why did these horse thieves appear a day in advance? Shen Wanshue and Rong Zhenbang also found something strange. Rong Zhenbang had been on the battlefield after all, and he almost immediately pulled Shen Wanshue to lie on the snow and whispered to Xia Huanhuan, "Huanhuan, lie down quickly. I'm afraid you've encountered horse thieves. Let's be quiet and let them pass." Xia Huanhuan had no choice but to cover her mouth tightly and lie on the ground, not daring to move, while her mind was racing. She really didn't understand why it turned out like this. Obviously, the predictive dream she had was for her to change the future, right? But now it turned out that no matter what she did, she would encounter this group of horse thieves. What's the point? Was it just to make her come all the way here and lose her life? Xia Huanhuan was very resentful now. What is going on?
And Li Zhan?
The horse thieves showed up a day in advance.
Li Zhan.
Will he be able to arrive in time to prevent what happened later? When she thought of Li Zhan being amputated in the dream, she couldn't help shuddering. Xia Huanhuan closed her eyes and forced herself not to think about it anymore. There is a possibility that the horse thieves had passed by this area at this time in the original timeline and only went to Sanshur Mountain the next day and met Shen Wanshue and the others. So therefore, it makes sense that they met them in advance. In that case, as long as they are not discovered and wait quietly for them to pass, they should be fine. Xia Huanhuan was so nervous that her heart almost jumped out of her throat. Fortunately, after a while, it suddenly snowed heavily again. The original wind carried the heavy snow all over the sky, causing visibility to drop rapidly. The horse thieves roared past them a few dozen meters away. The three of them waited until the horse thieves were far away before they breathed a sigh of relief. They got up quickly, then drove the sheep, braving the wind and snow, and walked anxiously towards a pasture. Although it is temporarily safe now, there is no guarantee that the horse thieves will be killed suddenly. However, what you fear will come true. They had just walked for less than half an hour when they suddenly heard the sound of horses neighing behind them and the whistles and shrill laughter from the men's mouths rushing towards them. Xia Huanhuan looked back, and her heart skipped a beat. Rong Zhenbang reacted quickly. He immediately pulled Shen Wanshue and shouted to Xia Huanhuan, "Run." Shen Wanshue didn't react for a moment and said in a lost voice, "But the sheep." "What about the sheep?" Rong Zhenbang said, "We can't take care of the sheep now. Maybe they will see these sheep we abandoned and won't chase us." Shen Wanshue didn't dare to think about anything else after hearing this, and she took a step forward and ran in the snow with difficulty. Soon, the horse thieves caught up with a flock of sheep and stopped. One of them laughed and said, "Brother, I said I just heard the cry of sheep. You see, we turned back for the right reason. These 10 or so are enough for us to eat for half a month." The leader of the horse thieves was obviously very happy and laughed. "Ha ha. The second brother has made a contribution today. With these sheep, we don't have to run around this winter." At this time, another person interrupted and asked, "Brother, we won't chase the 3 shepherds who escaped?" The eldest glanced at him and said, "The sheep are all here. Why are you chasing 3 people? With such a big snowstorm, let them fend for themselves." The man chuckled twice and said, "Brother, I saw the 3 shepherds from afar. The 2 old ones are fine, and there is also a young one. Brother, you also know that I am still single." The eldest brother heard it, raised his hand and slapped the man on the head, and scolded with a smile, "You turtle's son, do you want to eat alone?" The man heard it and said quickly, "No, no. Brother, you must be the first one. In my opinion, we should chase them, kill the 2 old ones directly, and bring the young one back, and the brothers will drink mutton soup and have fun. What do you think of meat, brother?" The eldest brother did not object this time and smiled. "You kid is smart. Let's go." Immediately, the boss gave an order, leaving a few people to watch the sheep. The others immediately laughed and rushed towards Xia Huanhuan and the others on horseback. Xia Huanhuan and the others were already out of breath. Seeing that the horse thieves stopped chasing, they all breathed a sigh of relief. But then they heard the obscene whistles of these horse thieves, and they were startled. Shen Wanshue couldn't run anymore, and her legs gave out. Suddenly falling to the ground, she gasped and said, "Huan, you are young, don't worry about us. You run." Xia Huan was not willing to leave them, but Shen Wanshue and Rong Zhenbang couldn't run anymore. They both knelt on the snow and didn't even have the strength to stand up. Xia Huan gritted his teeth and pulled the two of them separately. He held his hand and said, "Father, Mom, I will take you to a place. Don't be afraid." At this critical moment, there is nothing else to worry about. Save the lives of Shen Wanshue and Rong Zhen first. Bangde looked at her in surprise, not knowing what she was going to do. Nothing happened. Xia Huan. What's the matter? It's always a critical moment. Shen Wanshue and Rong Zhenbang both looked at Xia Huan and laughed. I didn't know what to say. In just a short time, the group of horse thieves were already much closer. Xia Huan was shocked. If she had space, it would be easy for her to escape. But in that case, Rong Zhenbang and Shen Wanshue would be able to escape. She still couldn't escape the fate of being killed. If a fierce battle came from behind, she would still be injured. In that case, what would be the point of her traveling all the way these days? No way. However, as the script goes on, the horse thieves are numerous, riding horses, carrying swords, daggers, and homemade earthenware warehouses on their side, including Shen Wanshue and Rong Zhenbang. She is over 50 years old, and she has been trapped in a snowstorm for several days. She has no strength to stand still. As for weapons, in addition to the Browning she secretly took out from the space before, there are also a few small daggers. There is nothing else. How to fight against the massive horse thieves? Xia Huan looked around anxiously, and suddenly, she pulled Shen Wanshue and Rong Zhenbang and ran towards the west. Mom, I see there seems to be a river over there. Let's run over there. Rong Zhenbang was stunned for a moment, then nodded immediately and said, yes.
Right.
It was icy now, but the road was slippery on the ice. They chased after them on horseback. Without paying attention, the horse's leg broke. Late snow, try harder. It doesn't matter if we both die. We can't let Huan follow us and take a ride with her life. After hearing this, Shen Wanshue quickly struggled up and said, yes. I can't give up. I can still hold on. Let's run. Xia Huan couldn't help but feel awe after hearing Rong Zhenbang's words. As expected, she had been a soldier, and she immediately analyzed the reason for her suggestion. However, it was a mistake to rely on those horse thieves to break their legs. After thinking about it, she thought about her next move. No matter what, she had to take a gamble. The three of them immediately got up and ran towards the river bed to the west. The river was very big, from one bank to the other. With a width of 7 or 8 meters, it is an important river in this area. The herdsmen grazing cattle, sheep and horses all need to drink from this river to quench their thirst. Therefore, the edge of the ice surface is cut open from time to time. There are ice caves for the sheep and cattle to drink, and there are also some ice caves for catching fish. The snowstorm has been raging in the past few days, and the ice is also covered with a thick layer of snow. It was very deceptive, making people think that it was also a snowfield, not on the ice. Xia Huan had walked here before, so she knew the location of the river, so the three of them were afraid of running into the river bed, even if they covered it. Xia Huan simply let Rong Zhenbang and Shen Wanshue crawl on the ice and gave them each a pair of boots that could be hidden inside. The dagger, let them use this as a support to slide across the ice. When the horse thieves saw the three people running away in a hurry, they were not only not upset, but also became more interested. What they loved most was to see the prey they were chasing end. The look of despair. Moreover, the harder the prey is, the sweeter it will be when it is caught and eaten. As far as the eye could see, he could still see Xia Huan's beautiful face when she turned around in panic. It was completely different from the woman on the grassland who had been exposed to the sun all year round. Her skin was almost as white as the snow. He couldn't wait to think about it. Because of his dirty and excited mood, the horse thief consciously slowed down the pace of pursuit and played hard to get. The other horse thieves were all in the same boat. They immediately understood what the boss was thinking and slowed down a little. However, this gave Xia Huanhuan and the others more time to escape. After they were far away, the leader of the horse thieves shouted "Drive!" and galloped towards Xia Huanhuan and the others, waving his whip. Xia Huanhuan heard the whistle from the horse thieves and turned around to see them. They were about to reach the ice. She and Shen Wanxue had almost reached the other side of the river and were struggling to climb to the shore. At this time, the horse thieves had already stepped on the ice. When the time came, the horses' hooves slipped and a group of people came. Unprepared, several people were thrown off their feet, and then one collided with another and more than 7 or 8 people fell down. His grandma's legs were also broken. Why is there a river here? Do guides work for a living? The leader of the horse thief was so angry that he cursed. He was also shaken off by his own horse and almost fell to the ground and chewed mud. The horse thief in charge of the guide said tremblingly, "Boss, I'm sorry. I was careless for a moment and forgot about this. But it's not a big problem. Isn't it just a matter of losing a few horses and falling a few times? How could they, a dozen tall men, not catch up with 2 old guys and 1 woman? The 3 people who were chasing them would soon get something good for them." The leader of the horse thieves, together with the other horse thieves, simply abandoned their horses and ran towards Xia Huanhuan and the others. Don't think you can escape just by luring us onto the ice. Let's see how I deal with you after I catch up with you. The leader of the horse thieves shouted even more arrogantly. Shen Wanxue looked back and saw that the horse thieves had staggered to the center of the river. She was frightened. Zhenbang. They're coming soon. What to do? What to do? After hearing what the horse thief said, Rong Zhenbang now knew that their target was Xia Huanhuan, and he immediately said, "Huanhuan, take Wanxue and run away. I'll stop them here for a while, delay them for a while." Before he finished speaking, there was a sudden bah. The sound of 2 wooden barns resounded through the sky. Rong Zhenbang subconsciously threw Shen Wanxue down and protected her. On the ice, the leader of the horse thieves was so angry that he yelled, "Mother, what dog?" A wooden barn built by a son of a witch. Although they all carry earth and wood warehouses with them, they are used to prevent the cavalry on the grassland from engaging in hand-to-hand combat. Usually when they plunder a lone herdsman, a waste knife is enough. But in this case, shooting will only it might attract the attention of the patrolling cavalry and lure them over. The other horse thieves looked at each other, but they didn't fire. Just when they were confused, suddenly, there was a strange sound of click, click, click under their feet. Suddenly, he said in a trembling voice, "Old boss, I'm afraid. The river surface has cracked." He knows best that the current in this river is relatively fast, so it freezes late, and the thickness of the ice is thinner than other completely frozen rivers. The herds of cattle and sheep crossed the ice and crossed the river separately. This time there were more than a dozen people and a dozen horses, which was already a bit dangerous, and with the 2 gunshots just now, no one was injured. I'm afraid that it hit the ice and caused cracks. Everyone stopped in place. The guide continued, but before the words "don't move" were uttered, the ice surface was cracked. "Everyone run."
Run.
A horse thief suddenly shouted, and then ran away. When the others heard this, their nerves were highly tense, and they were unable to judge the best course of action. Everyone swarmed and tried to run towards the shore. In this way, the ice surface cracked almost to pieces, and several slow runners fell into the cold river water. Rong Zhenbang and Shen Wanxue both looked at the scene in front of them in shock. The ice surface was so frozen. Xia Huanhuan had already gotten up, pulled them, and said, "Why are you still standing there? Run quickly." Although the breaking of the ice can kill at least half of the horse thieves, there is no guarantee that there will not be others who can run fast enough to reach the shore. In that case, if they are caught up, there will be absolutely no chance for the horse thieves to survive. Only then did Rong Zhenbang and Shen Wanxue react and quickly got up and continued running. Just as Xia Huanhuan expected, there were 3 or 4 horse thieves, including the leader of the horse thieves, who escaped ashore. Seeing his brothers having their horseshoes broken and falling into the water at the hands of these three men, how could he still have the chance to win just now? He couldn't help but become angry from shame, and took out the earth and wood warehouse and pointed it at Xia Huan and the others. Another horse thief stopped him and said, "Brother, don't. It's not worth it for a woman. If we shoot again, and the cavalry is really attracted, we will be finished." The leader of the horse thief jumped in anger and said, "Chase."
Mom.
"Yes, if I don't kill them today, I swear I won't be a human being." Shen Wanshue was old after all, and suddenly she tripped and fell to the ground. Just like that, a horse thief had already caught up with them, holding his sword high and saying, "You old man, go to Hades." There was another sound of a wooden barn, and the horse thief looked down in disbelief. His own chest, and then slowly fell down. Xia Huan held the gun in both hands and looked at the horse thieves almost in horror. Rong Zhenbang and Shen Wanshue also looked at Xia Huan in shock. The leader of the thief did not expect that the seemingly weak woman they were chasing actually had a gun in her hand, so he quickly took out his gun subconsciously. The leader of the thief aimed at Xia Huan, while the other two aimed at Rong Zhenbang and Shen Wanshue. These three people are probably not bait set by the cavalry. "Brother, what should we do?" The leader of the horse thieves said coldly, "Kill the two old ones first." "Wait a minute." Xia Huan's heart trembled. Shouted in alarm. There are 6 bullets in the Browning in her hand. She just used 2 bullets to shoot on the ice and kill the horse thief. She used another one, and there are 3 bullets left. She has to deal with the remaining 3 horse thieves. The number is enough, but no matter how powerful she is, she can't shoot 3 people at the same time, and at the same time prevent them from shooting Shen Wanshue and Rong Zhenbang. "I'll let you do whatever you want, don't kill them," Xia Huan said. Now she can only hope that those obscene words shouted by the bandit leader on the ice just now are still useful. At least, it will delay for a while. If Li Zhan was nearby, he would have arrived as soon as possible after hearing the sound of the wooden warehouse, right? As long as... "Li Zhan, please hurry up and get here." The leader of the horse thief couldn't help but hold his breath when he saw Xia Huan's bright and beautiful face. He originally planned to kill these 3 people immediately and run away quickly to prevent being caught by the cavalry, but now he hesitated. The other 2 horse thieves were not much better, and their mouths couldn't help but become dry. Xia Huan said in a trembling voice, I will put down the wooden warehouse. Please, don't kill my parents." As she said that, she slowly placed Browning on the snow beside her. The horse thief leader gritted his teeth and said, "Throw the gun away. Also, take off your clothes. I won't kill them." Xia Huan's eyes flashed with murderous intent, but when he saw that he was still being pointed at by Mutsong Rongzhenbang and Shen Wanshue, who were lying still, had no choice but to throw the guns away for a moment, and then raise their hands to unbutton their clothes. What to do? Could it be that in the end, she still couldn't change what she saw in her dream? The collar was lifted, and the skin that was really whiter than milk was exposed, which made several thieves feel excited. The leader of the horse thieves suddenly cursed in a low voice, rushed over and threw Xia Huan to the ground, and used both hands to pull the clothes on her chest. At the same time, he ordered the other 2 horse thieves, "You 2 are so old. Guys, watch carefully." At this time, there was a sudden sound of a wooden barn, and one of the horse thieves looking at Rongzhenbang, and the 2 fell to the ground without saying a word. His other companion turned back to look at him in shock. Before he could say a word, there was another. His companion was also hit directly in Mutsong's head and fell to the ground dead. Shen Wanshue cried out in horror. Rong Zhenbang hugged her into his arms and comforted him in a low voice. "Wanshue, it's okay. It's okay. I'm here. They coming to save us." At the same time, the unique sound of horse hoofbeats came from the snow. The cavalry galloped in gallopingly. The leader of the horse thief was still alert, and his original desire disappeared in an instant, and he was about to explore his wooden warehouse. At this moment, he suddenly broke out in cold sweat and cried out in pain. A knife was inserted into his abdomen, and the handle of the knife was in Xia Huanhuan's hand.
Ah.
Stinky. Stinky cousin, you're looking for death. As he said that, he already held Mutsang in his hand and pointed it at Xia Huanhuan.
Mukhang Rang.
Xia Huanhuan closed her eyes tightly. The leader of the horse thief froze for a moment, then fell to the ground on his back. Then, Xia Huanhuan heard a familiar voice saying, "Old man, are you okay?" "I'm sorry, we relate." She opened her eyes suddenly and saw Li Zhan getting off his horse gracefully and looking towards Rong Zhenbang. "Come over," then stare blankly in place. He looked at Shen Wanxue in Rong Zhenbang's arms in astonishment, and then moved his eyes to Xia Huanhuan aside. The astonishment and shock in his eyes became even more intense. His mother still makes sense, because this place is not far from the harvest farm where they are, but Huan. Why is his wife here?
Huan.
Why are you here? As he said this, he saw that Xia Huanhuan's collar was a little scattered, and then glanced at the dead horse thief leader next to him. His eyes almost burst out with fire. He felt distressed and regretful at the same time as to why he was here like this.
Night.
He rushed over and hugged Xia Huanhuan into his arms and asked in a low voice, "Huanhuan, how are you? Are you injured?" Xia Huanhuan's face was pale, although she probably knew that Li Zhan should be nearby and should be able to come over, but even when she saw that he was coming over, her nose was still sore, and her tears couldn't stop falling. The strength and grievances that she had held on to since she met the horse thief all collapsed at this moment, and she just snuggled tightly into his arms, shivering.
Li Zhan. I've fine.
Look at Mom. Look at them. See if they are injured? Shen Wanxue looked at Li Zhan with wide eyes, tears falling uncontrollably. Li Zhan. It's really me. It's really you. She wanted to impulsively say, "My son," but she held it back when she saw the people following Li Zhan. Rong Zhenbang also looked at Li Zhan blankly and couldn't help but blush.
This
is the child he has never seen since he was born.
Son.
He has grown so big, so tall, wearing a military uniform, and has grown into a good boy who protects his family and country. Li Zhan turned to look at Shen Wanxue, first took off his military coat and wrapped it around Xia Huanhuan, and then walked towards Shen Wanxue. Xia Huanhuan said, "I'm fine, I'm not cold." "Clothes for."
"Put them on,"
Li Zhan ordered without any doubt. Then he walked towards Shen Wanxue. Wei Bin and Lu Xiongdong, who followed him, quickly took off their military coats and put them on Shen Wanxue and Rong Zhenbang. Li Zhan looked at Shen Wanxue and then looked at Rong Zhenbang awkwardly. Shen Wanxue was afraid that Li Zhan would directly ask her to call her mother, so she said first, "Zhenbang, this is what I told you when I was in Qingshui village. The young man who has helped me a lot is called Li Zhan." "Li Zhan, thank you so much. If it weren't for you and Huanhuan, Aunt and your uncle, I'm afraid they would have died in the hands of horse thieves today." Rong Zhenbang was stunned for a moment, but he understood what his wife meant and thanked him. "Is it called Li Zhan?" "Big. Uncle, thank you." Li Zhan's nose sore and he glanced at Rong Zhenbang again. This was his biological father. But he still took a deep breath, suppressed the complicated emotions in his heart, and said softly, "You're welcome. This is all ours. It should be done." At this time, Bai Zihan came over with another group of people and said, 3 or 4 of the horse thieves who fell into the water drowned, and 3 or 4 were rescued. However, they suffered from severe hypothermia, and it is unlikely that they can be rescued. And a few others who were watching the sheep were already captured without any help. "How is it here?" Wei Bin said. "Of course our regiment leaders Mu Kengfa were all killed." Bai Zihan listened and said excitedly, "Okay. This time, this group of horse thieves has been basically wiped out, and they will never come out to harm the people again." Lu Xiongdong had already ordered the people he brought to dispose of the bodies of several horse thieves, and then said, "Captain, let's go back to the camp first. These fellow villagers were hit by a snowstorm and were almost killed by horse thieves. I'm afraid they are already hungry and cold." After hearing this, Li Zhan nodded and said, "Yes. Judging by the weather, it's probably going to snow again. Let's go to the nearby ranch first, and then we'll talk about the next step." As he said that, he had already pulled up Shen Wanxue and Rong Zhenbang and asked Wei Bin and Lu Xiongdong to ride one by one. Then, he walked to Xia Huanhuan's side. Xia Huanhuan calmed down for a while, and the trembling all over his body was gone. She got a little better, but her legs were still shaking. After trying several times, she couldn't stand up. Without saying a word, Li Zhan bent down and hugged her. Xia Huanhuan suddenly blushed and said, You put me down. I can go by myself. Li Zhan said angrily, I can't even stand up. How can I still walk? Hold me tight and don't move. You are my wife. What does it mean to be hugged by me? Xia Huanhuan blushed even more after hearing this, but she still hugged Li Zhan obediently and rested her face on his chest. Li Zhan carried Xia Huanhuan onto the horse, and then he also got on the horse, while the others drove the sheep Kun and the few horse thieves who were lucky enough to survive. Some of the horses leading the horse thieves had their legs broken on the ice. Because the horses had lost their value, they had no choice but to kill them with pain, tie them with ropes, and use the other horses were pulling them back to the ranch. There was a shortage of food here, and it was impossible to waste the meat of so many horses. The group of people quickly arrived at the ranch and saw them. The cavalrymen, who had been working hard to rescue trapped herdsmen and hunt down horse thieves, also warmly entertained them. Although there were many people coming at once, they were pulling 3 horses with broken legs, so the rations must be enough. Those sheep were driven over by Shen Wanxue and Rong Zhenbang. They were public property and were transferred to the ranch. However, 2 sheep froze to death due to the snowstorm. So, the number of sheep handed over was too short. Although there were force majeure factors, the ranch was still very difficult. Li Zhan kept paying attention to Shen Wanxue and Rong Zhenbang, so he walked over and said, Comrade, they're also in trouble. It's not easy. Those 2 sheep are not the ones they want to raise to death, right? When there is a snowstorm, there is nothing anyone can do. Let's do this. I'll give you some money for the 2 sheep, which is considered to be paying for them. What do you think? After hearing this, the accountant of the ranch had no choice but to say, Then, let's do this. You give me 50 and I'll post it in the account book and forget about it. Li Zhan immediately paid 50 and the matter was over. In the evening, the ranch processed a horse with a broken leg and made roasted horse legs, roasted horse steak, roasted some potatoes, and made milk tea. Entertained Li Zhan and them. However, Li Zhan still adhered to the principle of not taking advantage of the masses. They got the horse meat themselves, so they only paid for the processing fee and seasonings such as salt, cumin, and other baked potatoes. The money for milk tea, firewood, cow dung, and other things for heating were also paid to the ranch. Unlike the migratory herdsmen, the state-owned ranch here built red brick bungalows. It started to snow again in the evening. So, everyone ate in the house. It was New Year's Eve this year. Although we didn't eat dumplings like other places in the north, we had roasted horse meat, which was quite filling. There is a big stove. Above each stove, horse legs are pierced with red willow branches and put on them for roasting. In addition, they're cut into small pieces with a knife and thin and fat and threaded into mutton skewers. Another iron net is placed on the fire. Just put it on the iron grill with the potatoes. After a while, the meat will be sizzling, and the air will exude a mouth-watering fragrance. The smaller horse meat skewers are grilled first and sprinkled with salt and cumin. Li Zhan took 3 skewers and handed them to Xia Huanhuan and Shen Wanxue respectively. Xia Huanhuan was not polite and took a bite. For a moment, the aroma of meat overflowed in his mouth and his taste buds. It opened almost instantly. It was so delicious that he almost cried. Li Zhan looked at her eating the meat with enjoyment and couldn't help but smile. Don't worry, there is plenty. After a while, the roasted horse legs were almost ready. Wei Bin's hometown is in the northwest, so he was the one doing the cooking. He cut the horse meat into small pieces with a knife and then sprinkled it with salt and cumin. Everyone is not particular about it, so they just grab it with their hands. If you get tired of eating, there is also delicious roasted potatoes on the stove, which also releases the fragrance of milk. The method of making milk tea is similar to the one Xia Huanhuan drank at the station last time. However, this time, because there is enough horse meat, there is no beef jerky or other ingredients in it, only fried rice and milk tofu. A blizzard was raging outside, but there was a fire in the house, and everyone had a bowl of milk tea with barbecued meat and roasted sweet potatoes. Even the people in the ranch were happy and could eat without any worries. After a barbecue, their faces were all red and beaming with joy. In addition to the food everyone ate tonight, Li Jian also asked for another horse to be roasted and distributed to everyone so that they could put it in dry food bags. Next, we have to continue rescuing the trapped herdsmen and patrolling. They can only eat dry food outside. Mom, they should go back to the farm early tomorrow morning. Prepare some for them. After hearing this, Li Jian felt soft in his heart and said softly, I know. You are really worried. Bai Zihan came over and asked humbly, Sister-in-law, what are you whispering to Li Jian? Can't you let us listen? Everyone started to cheer after he said that. Xia Huanhuan blushed and said, What didn't you say? What did you say if you didn't say anything? It doesn't mean that tonight. Bai Zihan continued to laugh. Li Jian took a skewer of horse meat and stuffed it into Bai Zihan's mouth and cursed with a smile. You can't even close your mouth with meat? Everyone else laughed and someone said, Deputy Commander Bai, what the couple said in private, can we listen to it in public? Aren't you feeling numb? That is. Besides, Deputy Commander Bai, don't you also have a wife? If you want to hear it, wait until we get back and let your wife tell you. Ha ha ha. Everyone finished dinner and talked and laughed. The ranch had freed up 2 large warehouses for storing fodder for Li Jian and the cavalrymen he brought over to sleep. Although it was a bit crude, he used the fodder as bedding and his own military coat as a quilt. It's just that there is no fire in the warehouse. It's just a little cold. Xia Huanhuan is a little confused when she sees everyone spreading out the grass and making it look like a big shop. Even if Li Jian was there, it would be a bit embarrassing. However, they were originally staying here at the ranch, so they didn't have any objections, so they didn't say anything and planned to endure it all night. Rong Zhenbang naturally just spent the night together. However, after a while, someone from the ranch came over and said to Li Jian with a smile, Captain Li, the arrangements are made. Big Sister and Aunt Shen come with me. Aunt Shen, let's spend the night together. Xia Huanhuan was moved after hearing this. This rough guy has a very considerate heart. It's just. Li Jian went back home during the wheat harvest in May. It's been more than half a year now, and it's easy to see him again. We couldn't sleep together at night and talked quietly, which made me feel a little disappointed. But it was hard to say these words in front of so many people, so I had to look at Li Jian deeply. With one glance, Li Jian pulled Shen Wanxue to follow the rancher. Li Jian turned to Rong Zhenbang, paused, and then said, Uncle, I'm sorry. Please come with us for one night. Rong Zhenbang nodded quickly and said nervously, Hey, I'm already grateful for this. The room arranged by the ranch for Xia Huanhuan and Shen Wanxue was equipped with a stove, so it was much warmer than the warehouse with haystacks. Xia Huanhuan secretly took out the extra roasted horse meat left by Li Jian and gave it to Shen Wanxue. Mom, these barbecues were specially set aside for you by Li Jian. Are you going back to the farm tomorrow morning? I'm afraid the journey will take several days, so I'll use these as dry food on the road. When Shen Wanxue saw it, her eye circles were red again, but she accepted it without saying any more. After a thrilling day, the two of them were so tired that they almost fell asleep as soon as they touched the pillow. They spent the whole night without talking. The next morning, the sky cleared up and the sun actually came out. Li Jian and his brothers got up early, restored the haystacks to their original state, and then got ready to go because they knew Li Jian and the others were there. I had to go on the road early in the morning and woke up very early. After I got dressed and went out, I saw Li Jian and the others standing in the yard. Everyone had packed their bags and led their horses out, waiting to set off. When Rong Zhenbang saw Shen Wanxue coming out, he also greeted him. The two stood aside, looking at Li Jian in a daze. They finally saw their son, but for various reasons, they could not recognize each other.
Now.
We have just spent a night together, and we are about to separate again. I don't know when we will meet again. Li Jian came over and said, I have arranged for 2 brothers to take you all the way to the farm. Explain to the farm why you were late for returning home for several days. After hearing this, Rong Zhenbang and Shen Wenxue both nodded quickly and responded with some choking. Hey. With this delay, their return will always be a few days later than the originally scheduled return time. Although they can explain it themselves, the farm may not believe it, and may even suspect that they are absconding out of fear of crime. But if there are troops, if the soldiers testified, then the farm would definitely believe it. After giving the instructions, Li Jian walked towards Xia Huanhuan again, took a deep look at her, and then said, We will separate a small team to take those few. The horse thieves and the confiscated horses will be sent back to the station, and you will follow them back to the station. Xia Huanhuan was stunned for a moment, then her heart sank and she asked, Won't you go back? Li Jian said, We still have tasks to perform. You go to the station first, and stay there obediently. You are not allowed to run around anymore, do you hear me? We should go back to replenish supplies in about 3 or 4 days. You wait another 3 or 4 days, and when I return to the station, I will send you to the county seat and take a bus home. Xia Huanhuan felt as if there was cotton stuck in her heart. It was uncomfortable. However, she also knew that this was the only way. Li Jian was already busy performing tasks to save people, and if she asked for too much, she would cause trouble. Fortunately, Shen Wenxue and Rong Zhenbang were both fine. The leg was not injured to the point of amputation. She had come all this way to achieve the desired results, and she couldn't ask for more.
Well.
Okay. You must go back to the station in 3 or 4 days. I haven't eaten any dumplings during the Chinese New Year this year. When you come back, I'll make them for you to eat before I go back. While he was talking, Bai Zihan strolled over, still smiling mischievously, and said, What? What are you 2 whispering about? Li Jian rolled his eyes at him and said with a smile, Duant cause trouble. Bai Zihan was very innocent. Who said I was here to cause trouble? I'm here to report good news to my sister-in-law. Xia Huanhuan was stunned for a moment and looked at Bai Zihan doubtfully. Good news? What good news? News? Li Jian frowned and said, Bai Zihan, what nonsense are you talking about? By the way.
Well.
Lu Xiangdong, I, and the rest of us have all discussed it. We all agree that escorting my sister-in-law is a matter of. None of us are qualified. What if something goes wrong along the way? How will we explain it to the group leader? Li Jian looked at Bai Zihan and said, Bai Zihan, this is my order. Bai Zihan interrupted him and said, Hey, you can't say that. Although you are the leader, we must also talk about democracy. We all think your order is inappropriate, so you can't let us mention it, right? Those horse thieves are also very vicious. We feel that the task of escorting the horse thieves is much more important than the subsequent patrol task. It is your duty, leader, to do it yourself. After hearing this, Li Jian was so moved that he was speechless. These brothers under him were so loyal that they had already found a reason for him. Bai Zihan smiled and said, That's it. Leader, please change your order. We will patrol near the Xiaohe River to rescue the trapped herdsmen. The matter was settled like this. Xia Huanhuan felt happy in her heart. After saying goodbye to Shen Wenxue and Rong Zhenbang, she was suddenly picked up by Li Jian and put on the horse. Xia Huanhuan's face turned red to the root of her neck. Accused, I can mount the horse myself. Li Jian glanced at her and said with a smile, Have you forgotten the last time we were at the temporary station over there, and when we saw the horse, we were so frightened that our legs went weak? He was really good at riding horses. However, it seemed it wasn't easy to tell Li Jian, so he had to turn away and pretend to be angry and ignore him. Li Jian stepped on the saddle and got on the horse calmly and stayed close to him. She sat up on her back, put her hands around her body, pulled the reins, and said with a smile, Are you angry? Okay, you didn't have weak legs last time. I remembered it wrong. Is that okay? Xia Huanhuan rolled her eyes at him and said with a smile, That's pretty much it. Although it was a little embarrassing to ride the same horse with Li Jian, She didn't want to waste the rare time that the couple spent together by sharing 2 horses, so she leaned into Li Zhan's arms with some dependence. The group said goodbye. The ranch was divided into 3 teams and went their separate ways in 3 different directions. Unlike the last time at the temporary station, the pace of the fierce battle was slightly accelerated this time, so the horses were bumpy a lot. It was on the snowy ground, with the wind howling in her ears. Xia Huanhuan held on to the saddle tightly, feeling somewhat scared. After running for a while, she slowed down slightly, and then Li Zhan asked softly, "By the way, I never got a chance to ask you. How did you end up there with your parents being attacked by horse thieves?" Last night, Li Zhan had already asked Rong Zhenbang about how they were attacked, and he also knew that Xia Huanhuan found them first and managed to lure the horse thieves to the ice. However, Xia Huanhuan, there was something about Browning, but Rong Zhenbang hesitated but didn't mention it. He guessed that Li Zhan might have secretly given the Browning in Xia Huanhuan's hand to her for self-defense. After all, he is just a civilian. Although there are old hunters in the countryside who collect homemade earthen barns and go hunting in the mountains, Browning is different. Rong Zhenbang himself comes from a wealthy family and has served in the army. I have had several Brownings, and the price is not cheap. If Li Zhan gave them to him, where did he get them? If Li Zhan asked him alone, he would have nothing to say.
Question.
But you still have so many brothers with Li Zhan in the warehouse. What if he tells Li Zhan? Therefore, Li Zhan doesn't know that Xia Huanhuan has something on his mind. Yilin hesitated for a moment whether to tell Li Zhan what happened in the dream, but finally decided to tell him. A few days ago, for some reason, I had nightmares about my parents being trapped. In the snowstorm, I encountered a horse thief, and you were also injured. Although it was just a dream, I was really worried at home, and thinking that I hadn't seen you for so long, I wrote a letter of introduction and came to see you. You got it. I sent telegrams before I came here, but you may have been out in the field and haven't had time to see them yet. First, I arrived at the station and spent the whole night with you. Before I could wait for you to come back, I thought I would go to the farm where my mother and the others were to visit them first. If they were safe and sound on the farm, I would be relieved. Who knows, I went over and asked. They drove the sheep to the pasture last night. I went to the pasture again and didn't see it. However, the people at the pasture said it might be in Sancher Mountain, so I went there to try my luck. I didn't expect to actually meet him. Then we encountered horse thieves, and you guys arrived in time. Li Zhan listened quietly, feeling pity in his heart, and said softly, "Huanhuan, thank you for your hard work." Because she was worried about him and his parents, she traveled thousands of miles away, braving the wind and snow. He came here and actually saved his parents' lives. Xia Huanhuan nestled herself in his arms and said with a smile, "It's okay. If that dream hadn't felt too real, I wouldn't have come. If something really happens to you and your parents, if I don't come, I will definitely not have peace of mind for the rest of my life." He rode for a day and finally returned to the station in the evening. It was not too early for Li Zhan to look at the sky. Let the brothers who came back together rest for one night, and set off to meet Bai Zihan and the others early the next morning. Xia Huanhuan stayed in the same yurt where he had stayed a few days ago. This time, he finally had space to be alone with Li Zhan. Xia Huanhuan went back to the yurt first and took off the boots on his feet. There were some signs of frostbite last night, but it was more obvious today. They were severely swollen, itchy, and sad. Li Zhan looked at it and couldn't help but gasped. Xia Huanhuan subconsciously wanted to hide his feet and said with a smile, "It's okay. Just warm it up." Actually, entering the space and soaking it with some spiritual spring water would be almost as good. It's just that from yesterday to now, I haven't had the chance to enter the space. That's why I ended up like this. Li Zhan squatted down, grabbed her ankle, and seriously after checking it, he said domineeringly, "Don't move." It was very red and swollen, but luckily the skin wasn't broken yet. Li Zhan sighed and said, "It's so serious. Why didn't you tell me?" Xia Huanhuan felt a little guilty. "We haven't walked much, so it's okay. Li Zhan raised his eyes and glanced at her angrily. "Is this okay? Sit down and don't move." With that said, Li Zhan got up, went out to find a basin, and poured hot water from the kettle on the stove. After it cooled down a little, he let Xia Huanhuan soak her feet. Then she went out again. When she came back, Xia Huanhuan had already washed her feet and put them in the quilt to keep them warm. Li Zhan grabbed her ankle and applied some medicine on the frostbitten area. This is it. It was prepared by an experienced Mongolian doctor and is very useful. When we came here and got chilblains, we relied on this treatment until we got used to it. Apply some. It should be healed in a day or two. Xia Huanhuan's face flushed. Although they had been married for 2 years, she was still embarrassed to be caught by him applying medicine on her bare feet. Moreover, when the affected part of her foot was touched, it was itchy and painful, and she couldn't help moving around. Li Zhan said unhappily, "Don't move." "But it's itchy." "You are not allowed to scratch it even if it itches, otherwise you will scratch the skin, and it will be difficult to heal." After applying the medicine with great difficulty, Li Zhan poured out the foot-washing water and returned to the yurt. Xia Huanhuan had taken off her clothes, leaving only a red belly band and pajamas on her body and a quilt on her body. She looked at Li Zhan with wet eyes. Li Zhan swallowed subconsciously, and his eyes deepened. He immediately pounced on her like a leopard, hugged Xia Huanhuan in his arms, bit her lips roughly, and tasted her wantonly, then leaned close to her ear and said in a hoarse and magnetic voice, "Wife, I miss you so much." Xia Huanhuan also wanted to do that. She raised her hands and hugged his neck, responded to his kiss, and said softly, "I miss you, too." Although it was just once, Xia Huanhuan was also very tired. She didn't even want to move a finger while lying in Li Zhan's arms. Her whole body was lazy and satisfied. At this time, Li Zhan got up again. Xia Huanhuan was stunned for a moment and looked at him puzzledly. "It's so late. Where are you going?" Li Zhan smiled while putting on his clothes. "You go to bed first. I don't know if there are other gangs among those horse thieves. They are interrogating them all night. I'll go over to take a look at the situation and come back." Xia Huanhuan felt distressed and a little angry when she heard this. This workaholic. She came all the way here to find her husband, and they haven't seen each other for more than half a year, and now he did this. She just ran away. It's too much.
But,
alas, who made her marry a man with such a job?
She
just endured it. Li Zhan seemed to see her disappointment and said with a smile, "I promise, I'll be back in a while." Li Zhan said and went out. When they arrived at the interrogation place, Wei Bin, who was in charge of the interrogation, just came out and gave Li Zhan a brief report. From what they said, it seems that there are no other accomplices. Their boss was also shot dead by you, the captain.
It's
what?
Li Zhan asked.
There are a few places where their confessions don't match. Li Zhan frowned slightly and said, "Tell me." "One is the reason for the cracked ice. Because they were watching the sheep, they didn't know it very well, but because they wanted to watch the excitement, they also ran over here for a while and saw the situation on the ice from a distance. But Captain, we rushed over because we heard the initial wooden gun sound. Those 2 wooden gun sounds did not sound like earthenware guns. Also, when we rushed over to rescue my sister-in-law and the others, in addition to the 3 people we shot dead, 1 person was already dead. Judging from the wound, it should not be an earthenware gun, but Browning." Li Zhan's heart moved, and his brows frowned even tighter. Browning again? However, we asked these horse thieves where the Browning in their hands came from. But those people looked like they had never even heard of the name Browning. After finding out that it was wooden guns, they denied it, saying that they only had earthenware guns and no Browning.
So,
is Browning so easy to get now? Why do it seem like each of the criminals has one? The brother in charge of the interrogation had not gone back to Qingshui village with him to rescue the triplets, so he didn't know that the Browning appeared that time. He was just wondering how these horse thieves got such an expensive, foreign-made hand-made wooden magazine. But Li Zhan became suspicious again. The only thing in common in the 2 situations was that his wife was present. Have the bullets been collected?
Li Zhan asked.
The interrogator nodded and brought the bullet to Li Zhan. Li Zhan took a closer look and found that there were carved patterns on the bullet, and the patterns were consistent with the patterns on the bullet of the kidnapper in Qingshui village.
Could it be that
Browning really belongs to his wife. The possibility of his biological parents having this thing is very small. Otherwise, the farm alone would have found it out long ago.
But
His wife should be the daughter of an ordinary farmer in Xia Village, a neighboring village of Qingshui Village. How could she have such a dangerous thing in her hand? If she got it later, where did she get it from? Somehow, Li Zhan subconsciously thought of Luo Cheng. Although Fu Nanjing's testimony last time cleared Luo Cheng's suspicion. But somehow, he still had a hunch that things were not, as Fu Nanjing proved. The interrogator saw Li Zhan in a daze and couldn't help saying, "Captain, what should we do?" The Browning was not found at the scene. Logically, it should have been found at the scene anyway. Li Zhan came back to his senses and tried to remain calm and said, "It was not far from the river at the time. Maybe it was swept into the river in the panic. Mu Song should belong to the leader of the horse thieves. The people inside are probably just minions. They probably didn't know that their boss was holding such expensive foreign goods. It was written in the confession that it belonged to the horse thieves and fell into the river." Regardless of whether the Browning belonged to Huan Huan, he couldn't let others suspect her. The interrogator thought this possibility was more likely. Otherwise, the people present at the time couldn't be the two old men working on the farm and the sister-in-law, right? Therefore, he agreed to go in and continue recording the confession. After a while, he took out the record of the confession. Li Zhan took a look at it. After confirming that they really had no other accomplices, he nodded and said, "You should go to bed too. We have to travel early tomorrow morning." The brother who was interrogating her saluted and said, "Yes." He couldn't help but be naughty again and said with a smile, "Captain, go and accompany your sister-in-law. My sister-in-law must be waiting anxiously." After that, he ran away. Li Zhan couldn't help but laugh and scolded, "Little rascal." Then he walked back. Although the wind and snow had stopped, it was still freezing cold. He walked outside for a while and then went back to the house. His body was still cold. Xia Huan was also tired. After a while, she fell asleep again. Li Zhan moved lightly and didn't disturb her. He stood in front of the bed, frowning and looking at her beautiful sleeping face. If that Browning was really hers. If the person his brothers saw coming out of Luo Cheng's courtyard last time in Beijing was also her. Could it be that Luo Cheng helped her get the Browning? What is her identity? Is she really just a farmer's daughter? Should he ask her directly and find out everything? Li Zhan thought for a while, then went to the stove to warm himself for a while. When his hands and body were no longer cold, he tiptoed to the bed and quietly searched through the coats and jackets that Xia Huan had taken off, but he did not find the Browning. He checked the entire yurt again. For Li Zhan, who had performed countless dangerous and secret missions, it was not difficult to search the yurt without disturbing Xia Huan. Still nothing. Li Zhan was relieved for some reason. He climbed onto the bed, took Xia Huan into his arms, and then groped her body. "You. Why are you?" Li Zhan sealed her lips at the right time and smiled. "Didn't I say I would be back soon? You don't think you can satisfy your man in one go, do you?" Xia Huan didn't have the Browning on her either. Perhaps the Browning really fell into the river and could not be found, just as he guessed. If that was the case, that would be fine. After being tossed around for half the night and seeing that light was already coming in from outside the yurt, Li Zhan finally ended. He kissed Xia Huan on her sweaty forehead, then looked at her delicate face and couldn't help but asked, "Huan?" Xia Huan responded contentedly and lazily. "Are you hiding something from me?" Li Zhan asked softly. Xia Huan, who had half of her face buried in the quilt, opened her eyes subconsciously, and her heart skipped a beat. Did Li Zhan discover something? Should she take this opportunity to tell him that she had a space and that she had traveled through time? But would he believe it? Would he treat her as a monster and distance herself from her, or even divorce her? After all, having a portable space and traveling through time from the future was such an incredible thing that ordinary people could never accept calmly. Just when Xia Huan hesitated, Li Zhan couldn't help feeling sad and inexplicably jealous. What Couldn't she tell him as her husband? Was he so untrustworthy?
If
She was facing that Luo Chung, would she not hesitate? Li Zhan felt that he was crazy for being jealous out of nothing. Xia Huanhuan was looked at by Li Zhan with a stern look, and she panicked subconsciously and said in a trembling voice, "No.
no.
What could I hide from you?" After that, she began to regret. Why was she so cowardly? In fact, she had always wanted to find a suitable opportunity to tell Li Zhan about her space.
But
She was not sure how Li Zhan would react after knowing it, so she instinctively acted like an ostrich and kept putting it off. Just now, it was obviously a good opportunity.
Li.
Xia Huanhuan wanted to make amends, but Li Zhan had already smiled and said, "Really? That's good. You should sleep for a while." He was about to get up. Xia Huanhuan's heart tightened. She stretched out her hand to grab him and asked in a hoarse voice, "Are you leaving again?" Li Zhan saw some timidity and dim light in her eyes and felt a little reluctant, but still said, "Yeah. The snowstorm seems to be over, but there are still many herders trapped, and their lives and property are threatened. We may have to be busy for another month. This time I come back, it's just right to replenish dry food and equipment. The next time I come back, it may be 7 or 8 days later." Xia Huanhuan lowered her eyes and said a little depressed, "Then I'll go back today. There are 6 kids at home, and my parents are the only ones taking care of them. I'm really worried." Li Zhan also knew that Xia Huanhuan came here to visit relatives, and it was impossible for her to stay in the base for a long time and wait for him to come back from the mission. However, it was still sad to hear her say that she was going back. "Well, I guess I can't send you there. I'll ask the base to send someone to take you to the county and then take a bus with you to Hohhot. I'll ask him to come back after I see you get on the train. I'll also send a telegram to third brother Fu, asking him to pick you up in Beijing." Xia Huanhuan nodded and said, "Well, okay." Then she stood up. Li Zhan tried to stop her and said, "It's cold outside. You should sleep a little longer." But Xia Huanhuan still insisted on getting up, putting on her clothes, and said, "You haven't eaten the dumplings I made during the Chinese New Year this year. I brought some flour here, and I'll make some for you, and eat a few to suit the occasion." Li Zhan was stunned for a moment, feeling warm in his heart, and said gently, "You too. Why bother? There is no custom of eating dumplings here." Xia Huanhuan said angrily, "I don't care. You are not from here, and you have to eat these dumplings anyway." Li Zhan sighed helplessly and said with a smile, "Okay. Then I'll help make them too." When Xia Huanhuan came from the county, she took out 3 pounds of flour from the space and brought it here with her. Now she carried it directly to the cafeteria. There was no shortage of meat here, so she just cut 3 pounds of mutton, chopped it up, and mixed it with potatoes and onions to make stuffing. In order not to delay the departure, Li Zhan called all his brothers and asked them to wash their hands and come to help roll out the dough and make dumplings. 3 pounds of flour made about 200 dumplings. It was impossible to feed everyone, but it was enough for everyone to have 2 or 3 dumplings to try. The bowl of dumplings that Li Zhan had was specially made by Xia Huanhuan, who boiled the water in a small pot. Li Zhan looked at Xia Huanhuan's busy back, and his heart was soft. She had secrets in her heart, and until now, everything she had done was for the good of him, their child, and his biological parents. He waited patiently, until the moment when she took the initiative to tell him her secret. After eating the dumplings, Li Zhan hugged Xia Huanhuan tightly for a while before saying, "Wife, I'm leaving." Xia Huanhuan was reluctant to let go. Her nose was sore and her throat was choked. "You have to pay attention to safety. If you meet horse thieves again, you must be careful and don't get hurt.
Do you hear me?"
Although the dream was over, she was still afraid that he would get hurt. Li Zhan gently stroked her hair and chuckled, "Silly. Of course, I will be careful. You and the guys just wait for me at home. Also, you are not allowed to come all the way to find me alone in the future, okay? Otherwise, your reputation of traveling thousands of miles to find your husband will spread next time." Xia Huanhuan blushed to her ears and pushed him away, glaring at him coquettishly. "Bah! Who is willing to travel thousands of miles to find you? Shameless."
Li Zhan Loga and Wei.
Don't be so conceited in the future. It's so dangerous to be attacked by horse thieves like this time. If something really happens, I don't know if I can bear it. Xia Huanhuan's heart shuddered, and so did she. If something happened to Li Zhan, she really didn't know if she could make it. Anyway, we're all fine, Xia Huanhuan said softly. Li Zhan nodded solemnly and said, yeah. Xia Huanhuan didn't go back to the yurt until Li Zhan and the others were so small that they could no longer be seen. She would tell him about the space the next time, when Li Zhan came home. As for the matter of traveling through time, it's better to keep it a secret. Her situation, to put it bluntly, is like a resurrection from the dead, which is always a bit unlucky. When the time comes at home, even if Li Zhan can't accept it for a while and insists on divorcing her, she will order a few little guys to go up and cry. After all, they are his own flesh and blood, and she doesn't believe that he would be so cruel as to not want the mother of his child. He must cry until he accepts it. That morning, it was Xiao Ma who drove Xia Huanhuan to the county and bought a bus ticket to take her to Hohhot. After getting on the train, she was considered to be going back. She also bought a sleeper berth through the army, so she didn't suffer much. After arriving in Beijing, Fu Nanjing came to pick her up. As soon as they met, he scolded her in a bad mood. You are a young woman. How can you be so arrogant? If you encounter something and you can't contact Li Zhan, why don't you contact me, your third brother? If there is anything, can I not go with you to find Li Zhan? How dare you take a train and then a bus alone to go so far to visit your relatives? What if you meet human traffickers on the way? If there are several big men and a few women, and they insist that you are the wife of one of them, and a few women force you to go, I'm afraid no one will care to save you even if you shout for help. Xia Huanhuan frowned tightly, listening to Fu Nanjing's nagging in a strange way. If what he said was not the truth, and, although he was scolding her, he was actually concerned about her, it was not like a man's concern for a woman, but more like a brother's concern for a sister. Without any dirty intentions, she would have turned hostile long ago. Go with her to find Li Zhan? She is a married woman, and she went all the way with a man who has nothing to do with her to find Li Zhan? Li Zhan is a jealous person. It would be strange if he is not jealous. Besides, she is not familiar with the Fu family. This third brother Fu. Why is he so familiar? Forget it, considering that he is nagging for her own good. She endured it. Fu Nanjing started to nag to the end, and he couldn't bear it anymore. Alas. If there was evidence to prove that Xia Huanhuan was his sister, and then they acknowledged each other, then she wouldn't have risked running so far just because she had no one to rely on. Thinking of this, he asked distressfully, Are you hungry? I'll treat you to a Tonglu hot pot. Xia Huanhuan frowned at him. Even if he and Li Zhan were as close as brothers and Li Zhan was not there, what was the point of her going to eat with him alone? She immediately shook her head and said, No. I'm not hungry. I have to buy a ticket to go home quickly. I haven't seen the kids at home for 7 or 8 days. Fu Nanjing. There's no need to refuse so decisively, right? A little hurt. I don't know where the old man and dad's reputation has gone. They didn't recognize Xia Huanhuan, who is most likely their granddaughter or daughter, but were polite to that family, who were obviously fakes. It makes me angry when I think about it. Because of this, he has moved to the hospital dormitory, and he doesn't want to go back to see his home in such a mess. Well, okay. I'll go queue up to buy a ticket for you. It's not convenient at home these days. Otherwise, the old man and my dad would really like you to visit them. Let's forget it this time. Xia Huanhuan. Fortunately, it's not convenient, Fu Nanjing said, and took Xia Huanhuan's letter of introduction to help queue up to buy tickets, and also bought a sleeper ticket. After returning, he gave the ticket to Xia Huanhuan and saw a state-owned restaurant opposite the ticket office, so he went over to buy a few freshly baked crispy sesame cakes, wrapped them in newspaper, and handed them to Xia Huanhuan, saying, Here, sesame cakes, this is a time-honored brand, very delicious, you can eat them on the way. Then he saw the state-owned food store next to it, and went over to buy some oranges, peach cakes, and white rabbit milk candies, and gave them all to her, saying, Take these back and give them to your little brat, and say that their third uncle gave them the package. Xia Huanhuan. Okay. Who made the Fu family and Li Zhan good friends? I can't let her cause a rift between the Fu family and Li Zhan. She smiled and said sweetly, "Thank you, third brother Fu." Fu Nanjing was stunned for a moment, then couldn't help grinning. Why call me third brother Fu? From now on, don't use the last name, just call me third brother. Xia Huan. At that moment, Fu Nanjing sent her back to the train and then said, "When you get home, send me a telegram so that I can explain to Li Zhan. You also remember to send him a telegram to let him know you are safe. This is the address of the hospital. You must take a picture of it." Xia Huan agreed to all of them. The train whistled long and began to move slowly. Fu Nanjing also ran a few steps and waved to her. Xia Huan wanted to ignore him, but seeing his expectant and friendly look, she couldn't bear to be too cold, so she raised her hand and waved. It was not until the train accelerated and left the platform and the station that Xia Huan looked down to see what Fu Nanjing had bought. In addition to sesame cakes and oranges, peach cakes and white rabbit milk candies, there were actually a few lifelike dough figurines. Monkey King, Zhu Beiji, Monk Sha, Tang Monk and his 4 disciples, and Neza the third prince, and the remaining one was Chang'e holding the jade rabbit. Exactly 6, probably because they bought them according to the number of children in the family, 1 for each person. Chang'e was probably for Beibei, and the other 5 were naturally theirs. 5 brothers, 1 for each of them. Xia Huan couldn't help but feel touched at this time. Because of Fu Qingye, she had always kept her distance from the Fu family, and she had some grudges in her heart, thinking that the Fu family must not be very good to raise such a daughter. But now seeing how attentive Fu Nanjing was to the children, she felt that she couldn't look at people with tinted glasses. As for the other members of the Fu family, seeing how good they were to Li Zhan, it was hard to imagine that they were as selfish and bad-hearted as Fu Qingye. She sighed in her heart while watching, and then she suddenly realized that Fu Nanjing seemed to have said that these were the bags given to Xiao by the third uncle. The Fu family and Li Zhan are good friends, so shouldn't he call him the third uncle? What's the matter with calling him third uncle? Xia Huan was a little confused, but she quickly put it aside. Maybe she remembered it wrongly. After returning to the county, Xia Huan sent a telegram to Li Zhan to report that she was safe. After thinking about it, she decided to send a letter to Fu Nanjing and send it to the hospital. Then, she returned to the vicinity of the village through the space, took out a lot of delicious food from the space, and walked back home. Although she had been away for only 7 or 8 days, she felt as if she had been away for a long time. I wonder if the little ones missed her? They haven't seen their mother these days. Only their grandparents are at home. Did they cry a lot? They are eager to go home. Soon they arrived at the door of the house. Before they entered the house, they heard the crying voice of the triplets' grandmother. "Grandma, we want mommy. Yan Yan wants mommy.
Wow.
Yi also wants mommy. Woo woo. And Yao Yao also wants mommy."
Mommy.
Lin Yuru was helpless. "Hey, Yan Yan, Ye and Yao Yao, be good. Your mom is going to buy you delicious food. She will be back soon."
Well.
"You said the same thing yesterday. And the day before yesterday. And the day before yesterday." Lin Yuru. Xiao Wu came over and held Yao Yao and Ye's hands like a little adult. When he no longer held Yan Yan's hand, he let go of Ye first, raised his hand and touched Yan Yan's head, then said, "You 3 should stop making trouble for Grandma. And don't cry. Didn't Grandma say that Mommy is going to buy delicious food? If you don't want to eat the delicious food, then second brother, eldest brother, and sister will eat your share too." The triplets looked up at Xiao Wu, suddenly pouted, and burst into tears. "Woo woo. Second brother is bad. Second brother is bad. Second brother doesn't allow to eat Ye's delicious food. And eldest brother and sister are also bad. Why are you going to eat our share?" Xiao Wu was stunned. His original intention was to tell them not to cry, not to really eat all their shares.
Hey.
Don't cry. Isn't this a metaphor? Metaphor. You 3 are so uneducated. The triplets stopped crying, glanced at Xiao Wu, and then continued to cry in unison. Wu. Second brother is fierce Yan Yan. Yi/Yao Yao. Second brother is bad.
Wow.
Lin Yuru was angry and amused. How could they quarrel over this? The delicious food is not even there. Just as she was about to go over to persuade them to stop fighting, Xiaowen came out and said majestically, "Xiao Wu, are you teasing your brothers again?" Xiao Wu felt wronged. I was using a metaphor. Xiaowen was helpless. They are only 2 years old. It would be strange if they know what a metaphor is. Yan Yan, Yi Yi, and Yao Yao are good. It's all second brother's fault. Second brother is bad. Second brother will not eat your delicious food. You are 2 years old. You are big kids. Don't cry. Bebe also ran out and warmly pulled Yi Yi, who was crying the loudest, into her arms, and held her in her little hands to comfort her. The 3 little ones were also taken out to play by Xiaowen and the others since they were young. They were very dependent on and admired their big brother, and they all stopped crying. Seeing this, Lin Yuru couldn't help but sigh that this 7-year-old big brother was more useful than her grandmother. Xiao sighed, and sighed deeply that no one understood his analogy. Then he remembered something and couldn't help looking back at Lin Yuru and said a little depressed, "Grandma, I don't eat delicious food. Can Mom come back earlier?" Xia Huanhuan couldn't help but feel a lump in her throat when she heard it and pushed open the door, smiling a little choked. "I'm back." When the little ones heard her words, they immediately looked up and saw that it was indeed their mother standing at the door, and they couldn't help but run towards the door happily. "Mom, you're back. Yan Yan misses you so much."
And Ye misses mommy moreta Yan Yan. Well.
Yao Yao misses mommy too. The 3 little guys spoke in baby voices, hugging Xia Huanhuan's legs with their chubby little hands, looking up at her, their faces flushed and very cute. Xiaowen, Xiao Wu, and Bei Bei also showed happy smiles on their faces, and then Xiao Wu pouted his lips and burst into tears for some reason. "Mom, you're back." "Wu Wu." Xia Huanhuan. Not sure if it was infected by Xiao Wu, Bei Bei pouted his lips and cried with a wow. Xiao Wen also showed an aggrieved expression on his face. Seeing that their brothers and sisters were like this, the triplets cried even more without any hesitation. For a while, the yard was very lively. Lin Yuru came over with a look of amusement and heartache, picked up Yan Yan and said with a smile, "Didn't you just cry for your mother? Now that your mother is back, why are you still crying?" Xia Huanhuan was helpless. But seeing the 3 little ones crying like trumpets, Xiao Wu and Bei Bei also cried with grievance and felt very uncomfortable. Since the birth of the triplets, this was the first time she had been away for such a long time. Xia Huanhuan quickly took out the dough figurines from her bag and gave them to them. But it has been several years since then, so even Xiao Wen and Xiao Wu saw such colorful and lifelike dough figurines for the first time. "Mom, what is this?" Xiao Wu stopped crying immediately, staring at the dough figurine in Xia Huanhuan's hand with his eyes wide open. When the other kids saw it, they were naturally so surprised that they forgot to cry. Xia Huanhuan smiled and said, "This is called a dough figurine. It's made of dough, 1 for each person." Then, she gave the Chang'e holding the jade rabbit with flying clothes to Bei Bei first. "This one is for Bei Bei. The other 5, you 5 brothers share it." Bei Bei took Chang'e and almost jumped for joy.
"Mom,
this is Chang'e. And her rabbit. So beautiful," Xiaowen said in surprise. "Mom, I know. This is Sun Wukong. This is Tang Monk. These are Zhu Beiji and Sha Monk, the 4 masters and apprentices who went to the West to obtain Buddhist scriptures. There is also Neza, the 3rd prince. Our teacher told us about him in class." Xiao Wu also remembered it and said excitedly, "I remembered it too. I want the Monkey King Sun Wukong." Xiaowen patted him on the head and scolded, "You are such a big man. Don't you know how to give in to your younger brothers? Let your younger brothers choose first, and then you choose." After hearing this, Xiao Wu looked at the Sun Wukong with anger, but still nodded sensibly and said to his younger brothers like a little adult, "Yan Yan Ye Yao Yao, you choose first. Second brother tells you, this is Tang Monk. He is not good. Can't choose. He always doubts Sun Wukong. What a fool. This is Sun Wukong. He is so powerful. 1 somersault cloud can jump 10,000, 8,000 miles. He also has the golden hoop, which can kill all the monsters. This is Zhu Beiji. He is too lazy. Xiao Wu explained the 5 dough figurines to the triplets in vivid detail. In fact, the triplets didn't quite understand what the 4 masters and apprentices were, so they just looked at the colorful little figures and reached out to take them. In the end, Yan Yan took Tang Monk, Ye took Zhu Beiji, and Yao Yao chose Sun Wukong. Xiao Wu was so nervous that his palms were sweating. When he saw that Sun Wukong was still taken away, he looked like he was about to cry, but he still forced himself to be calm like a little adult.
Well,
Be strong. He is the elder brother, and the elder brother should give in to the younger brother.
well,
There is only one Monk Sha and one Neza. Xiao Wen patted Xiao Wu's shoulder sympathetically and said, Neza is for you. Neza is also very powerful. He can fight with Sun Wukong. Xiao Wu sniffed, took Neza listlessly, and said, but Neza can't beat Sun Wukong. Xia Huanhuan saw these little guys dividing the dough figurines and felt a little sorry for Xiao Wen and Xiao Wu. At the same time, she couldn't help but admire that they were all really good children. Apart from anything else, which boy of Xiao Wen and Xiao Wu's age doesn't admire Sun Wukong? Who doesn't want Sun Wukong's dough figurine? But Xiao Wu showed that he wanted it, but he still endured it. He also selflessly told Yan Yan and the others about Sun Wukong's strength without reservation, although Xia Huanhuan estimated that they only understood a little bit, and in the end Sun Wukong was picked by Yao Yao, and Xiao Wu didn't cry. Not to mention Xiao Wen. He never mentioned which one he wanted, but his eyes never left Sun Wukong just now. In the end, he took the initiative to give Neza to Xiao Wu and chose Shaseng. Xia Huanhuan's heart softened. These children are really heartwarming. Lin Yuru watched from the side and couldn't help but sighed. Ah, how many years have I not seen dough figurines? They are so well made. After saying this, she came back to her senses and smiled to Xia Huanhuan. You see, I was so busy looking at the dough figurines that I forgot about it. You just came in. You must be hungry? I'll make you a bowl of noodles with soybean sauce. Xia Huanhuan's heart moved and she smiled. Mom, I'm not hungry. I ate sesame cakes on the way. However, there is still flour at home, right? Do you have spinach and purple sweet potato? By the way, do you have red hawthorn? Lin Yuru was stunned for a moment and said, Yes, there is, but why do you suddenly ask this? Making dumplings. You don't need spinach, purple sweet potato, and hawthorn, do you? Xia Huanhuan smiled. I do need them. Xia Huanhuan said, and gave a piece of peach cake to Xiao Wen, Xiao Wu, and Beibei respectively, and a piece to each of the 3 younger ones. The rest was sealed and kept at home. She did not dare to take out white rabbit milk candy and sesame candy, and kept them together with the peach cake, lest the kids would miss them and eat them and damage their teeth. After packing up the things, Xia Huanhuan took out some cheese jerky and beef jerky and gave them to Lin Yuru. Mom, try it. This is a specialty of the grassland in the northwest, and it is delicious. It was the first time for Lin Yuru to see this thing, and she habitually refused. Well, keep these for yourself and the kids. I don't care about these things. Xia Huanhuan naturally knew that she was just being stubborn and liked to leave the delicious food for her children and grandchildren, so she said, Eat it if I tell you to. I bought a lot of it, and there must be some for the kids. They just ate the peach cake. How could I dare to give it back to them? After hearing this, Lin Yuru took it happily, took a bite of the dried beef jerky, and then said in surprise, This is meat? Xia Huanhuan smiled. It's made from dried beef.
oh,
Dried beef? How big a piece of meat would it take to dry such a small piece? It can be eaten for 2 meals if it is fresh. Lin Yuru felt distressed. Xia Huanhuan smiled. There is no land over there to grow food like we do here. It grows grass, so every household raises herds of cows and sheep. So there is more meat and less food. During festivals, they just kill a cow or a sheep. There is too much meat to eat, so they make it into jerky to preserve it. It can also be used as dry food when they go out to graze. Lin Yuru widened her eyes as if she was listening to a storybook. Is there such a place? Can't you eat meat for every meal? Xia Huanhuan smiled. It doesn't mean you can eat it for every meal. By the way, you can try this too. Lin Yuru took the cheese again, took a bite, and immediately the milk fragrance filled the air. Is this milk? Xia Huanhuan smiled. It's made of cow's milk or goat's milk, and it's also for preservation. Lin Yuru couldn't help but sigh. Oh, it turns out that there are so many places in this world that are different from ours. I have also broadened my horizons with my daughter. Xia Huanhuan smiled. This is nothing. Wait a minute. We will all move to the city, and then we will take you and Dad to have a good look around the country. Lin Yuru didn't even dare to think about it, but just hearing what Xia Huanhuan said, her heart was happy enough. After talking for a while, Xia Huanhuan went to knead the dough, and then added spinach juice, hawthorn juice, and purple sweet potato to the flour, making green, purple, and dark red dough. Xia Huanhuan kneaded and fiddled with it, and after a while, she made 2 sun wukongs, which actually looked like them. Lin Yuru looked at it and couldn't help laughing. So you want to make sun wukong for them? You spoil them too much. Isn't this a waste of food? Xia Huanhuan said. It doesn't matter. Let Xiaowen and Xiaowu play with it for a while, and tell them not to touch it with their hands. It won't be considered a waste when it is cooked in the pot at night. Nowadays, sometimes a handful of rice or noodles can save a life. Even if Xia Huanhuan's space is full of food, food cannot be wasted. As she said, she secretly called Xiaowen and Xiaowu over and handed them the dough figurine of Sun Wukong. The two were stunned for a moment, and then they were so happy that they almost jumped up.
Mom.
You are so awesome. Sun Wukong. I have Sun Wukong too. Although Xiaowen didn't say anything, his face was also beaming with joy. Xia Huanhuan said solemnly, I'll give you a long time to play with it, but you are not allowed to touch it with your hands if it gets dirty. It will be cooked in the pot at night. After hearing this, Xiaowu wrinkled his face and said helplessly, Mom, don't talk like you want to throw Sun Wukong into a frying pan and eat him. He jumped out of a stone and is not delicious. Xia Huanhuan couldn't help laughing. Stinky boy, stop talking nonsense and go play. Xiao Wen and Xiao Wu ran away, probably going outside to show off to the children in the village. In the evening, Xia Shuangshan came back from his bricklaying job, and Xia Huanhuan gave him beef jerky and cheese jerky to eat again. Xia Shuangshan couldn't help himself, and asked if he had seen Li Zhan, and if he was okay. That night, Xia Shuangshan stayed here for another night, and moved back to his own home the next day. Not to mention the things in Qingshui village. Here in Jingshi, Li Sankai and Li Ernie planned to use Li Ernie's second daughter, Hainu, to replace Xia Huanhuan and go to Jingshi to recognize their relatives. After they returned to the village, it began to snow, and the village was almost half closed. Besides, it was the end of the year, so they were delayed. They didn't arrive in Jingshi until New Year's Eve. Following the address Lu Yuliang gave them, they arrived near the compound. The three of them saw the sentry standing guard at the gate of the compound, and they were so scared that their legs went weak. After a long delay, Li Sankai went up to the guard tremblingly and asked him. The guard had a serious expression and asked in a businesslike manner, Where are you from? Who are you looking for? I'm looking for. But he was stuck for a moment. How could he know the person's last name? Seeing him like this, the guard immediately dispersed the people. You don't even know your last name or first name. Don't join in the fun here. This is not a place where ordinary people can enter. Li Sankai was not discouraged, no. Comrade, I really have something important to do.
Right.
By the way, the nanny of that family is surnamed Sun, and her name is Sun Chunhua. We are relatives of Sun Chunhua. The guard knew Sun Chunhua, and he couldn't help but be stunned for a moment, and then said, So you know Sun Chunhua? She does live in this compound, but she seems to have been in the Fu family for many years, and I haven't heard that she has any relatives? Li Sankai said with a smile. The emperor also has some poor relatives, right? I am her younger brother from her hometown in the countryside. This time I came here just to pay her New Year's greetings during the New Year. The guards knew that this was not a New Year's greeting at all. It was probably a poor relative from the countryside who came here to ask for money during the New Year. It was just a coincidence that Fu Weixin's guard was driving him home in a jeep. The guard at the door saluted quickly, then came over to check the pass and said together, Chief, there is a visitor here who said he is a relative of your Aunt Sunday. What do you think? What should we do? Fu Weixin was stunned when he heard it, and glanced at Li Sankai, who was standing outside the window. Relatives of Sun Chunhua? He remembered that Sun Chunhua said that all the relatives in the family were dead, and her husband divorced her because she couldn't have children. Over the years, no relatives have come to look for her, or she has returned to her hometown. Wait! After Huan came to Beijing to visit her relatives last time, Sun Chunhua seemed to have returned home. Is this person a relative she contacted last time she went back to her hometown? Thinking of this, he couldn't help but look at Li Sankai again. Li Sankai had never seen such a posture before, and smiled at Fu Weixin with some flattery and some shrinking.
Wow.
This family is so rich. They live in a spacious courtyard, and there are guards with wooden warehouses at the door, and they still go in and out in big cars. Sun Chunhua is so mean. His second sister and brother-in-law helped her do such a heinous thing, but she just gave them a few $dozen to get rid of them. On the contrary, she has been living in such a wealthy family for more than 20 years, eating and drinking well. Seeing this, Fu Weixin got out of the car, walked over and said, "Are you a relative from Sister Sun's hometown?" Fu Weixin was full of righteousness and had the majesty of a superior who had been in a high position for many years. Li Sankai was so scared that his legs and feet went weak, and he even stuttered a little. After a while, he quickly nodded vigorously and said, "Yes, yes. It is me."
And,
as he spoke, he waved at Li Ernie and Hei Nyo and shouted urgently, "Second sister, Hei Nyo, what are you doing standing there? Come here quickly." Li Ernie hurriedly pulled Hei Nyo and trotted over, with a smile on her face, and looked at Fu Weixin timidly. Li Sankai smiled and said, "This is my sister and her girlfriend."
No. And Hei Nyo.
We are all relatives of Sun Chunhua. Sun Chunhua is our sister. After hearing this, Fu Weixin looked them up and down. Hei Nyo was as dark as her name suggested, but Li Ernie was not much whiter. The two of them looked like mother and daughter, so they should be mother and daughter. He thought that since they were relatives of Sun Chunhua, and Sun Chunhua had been in the Fu family for so many years, he said kindly, "Is that so? Sister Sun should be buying vegetables at the vegetable market now. How about this? You two go home with me first, and you can see her when she comes back later." Li Sankai and Li Ernie didn't expect it to be so smooth. They nodded quickly and said with a smile, "That's great." Fu Weixin brought them into the Fu family. Li Sankai saw that it was actually a small building on the second floor. Although the furnishings inside were very simple, there were soft chairs like big white steamed buns and a porcelain vase with plum blossoms on the table. It was clean and tidy, with bright windows and clean tables. It was completely different from the adobe thatched house at home. He couldn't help but feel shocked and happy. Now he's rich. Fu Weixin said, "You guys sit down. Sister Sun should be back soon." Before he finished speaking, Li Sankai pulled Hei Nyo forward and said, "Hei Nyo, why are you still standing there? Kneel down and kowtow to your dear father." Hei Nyo was also repeatedly told by Li Sankai and Li Ernie on the way, so she knelt down with a thump and shouted in the country dialect with emotion, "Dad.
Dad.
I finally found you." Fu Weixin was stunned.
What
does this mean? Why is this Hei Nyo calling him Dad? Mr. Fu was reading in the study room. When he heard the noise, he asked the guard to push the wheelchair and came out. When he saw this scene, he was also stunned.
This.
Li Sankai hurriedly said, "Brother, didn't your family lose a daughter more than 20 years ago? Hei Nyo is your long-lost daughter." Fu Weixin's face darkened now. This black girl looked like charcoal. It would be fine if she looked a little like Wen Hui or him, but she didn't look like him at all. Are you insulting his IQ? However, these three people who looked like they were from the countryside actually knew that the Fu family had lost their daughter. It was probably Sun Chunhua who told them when she went back to her hometown in the countryside last time. But how could Sun Chunhua say these words casually? Fu Weixin felt unhappy in his heart. This Sun Chunhua, doesn't she know what to say and what not to say? Li Sankai seemed to realize that the black girl didn't look like her, so he tried his best to make excuses. the black girl. Grew up in the countryside since she was a child. She worked a lot in the fields, so she got tanned. In fact, she is not that dark. She is really your daughter. I have evidence here. Fu Weixin's face was dark, and he resisted the urge to drive them out. He said in a cold voice, "You have evidence?" "What evidence?" Li Sankai quickly called Li Ernie. "Second sister. That piece of bundle skin. Take it out quickly." Li Ernie was silent and tense the whole time. Now, when she heard Li Sankai talking, she quickly said, "Oh, here. As he said this, he handed the bundle that he had shown to Lin Yuru to Fu Weixin. Fu Weixin's hands trembled, and his heart trembled as well. Before he took the bundle, he remembered the pattern of the bundle clearly. He had picked it out in the cloth shop himself before going to the battlefield as a birthday present for Wenhui. He originally wanted her to make a cheongsam for him. In the end, she did not make clothes for herself, but used part of the cloth to sew a lining for a small wallet for him, with photos of his family inside, so that he could take it to the battlefield, and when he came back, she would make a cheongsam. Later, when he came back from the battlefield and his daughter was taken away, Xiao Wenhui, who had been bedridden for 2 years and was already weak, left behind a clue that was to tell him that the cloth he gave her as a birthday gift was used to make their daughter's swaddling clothes. He still kept the wallet and would take it out from time to time to recall the past, so he was very familiar with this cloth. This cloth. Where did you get it? Fu Weixin almost lost control, staring at Li Sankai and Li Ernie with horror. Seeing his son like this, Mr. Fu couldn't help but sit up straight with some emotion, watching the development of the situation here.
Could it be
really news about his granddaughter? Otherwise, how could Fu Weixin, who has always been steady, lose his composure like this in front of strangers? Li Sankai, Li Ernie, and the black girl were also frightened by Fu Weixin's appearance. Li Ernie looked at Li Sankai helplessly.
Sankai.
The black girl pulled Li Ernie's arm and shouted, "Mom."
I'm scared.
Li Sankai quickly calmed down and said, This. We got it from the human traffickers." Li Ernie and He Nua both stared at Li Sankai in a daze, listening to his explanation. Fu Weixin also glared at him coldly, and his aura made Li Sankai tremble all over. Li Sankai continued tremblingly. About 20 years ago, a human trafficker came to our village with a skinny little girl of 2 or 3 years old, saying that she could be taken away for $1. My second sister felt sorry for the little girl, so she spent $1 to adopt the child and raised her for 20 years. That girl is the He Nua standing in front of you now. Originally, we didn't expect it to be such a coincidence that after so many years, we can still find news about He Nua's biological parents. As they were talking, there was a noise at the door followed by A and the sound of something falling to the ground. Sun Chuanhua's face turned pale and her eyes widened, looking at Li Sankai, Li Ernie, and He Nua in horror.
How?
Why were they at the Fu's house? How did they find them? Fu Weixin turned his head with a gloomy expression and glanced at Sun Chunhua coldly. Sun Chunhua almost fainted. At this time, Fu Nanjing also came in and subconsciously supported her. "Aunt Sun, are you okay?" Fu Weixin ignored Sun Chunhua, but turned back to look at Li Sankai and said, "Go on. How did you know that my daughter was missing?"
Yes.
"I told them." Sun Chunhua hurriedly interrupted, her voice trembling, for fear that Li Sankai and Li Ernie would tell what happened that year. If that happened, she would be finished. Fu Weixin turned to look at Sun Chunhua, and his eyes were no longer as gentle as usual. Li Sankai and Li Ernie couldn't help but shudder when they saw Sun Chunhua, but then they straightened their chests. What are they afraid of? The one they should be afraid of is Sun Chunhua. Sun Chunhua was the mastermind of what happened that year. I shouldn't have said too much. These two people, one is Li Sankai and the other is Li Ernie, both of whom are my relatives in my hometown. Didn't I go home to visit my relatives last time? I haven't seen them for a long time, so I was too talkative and told them about my family's affairs. I really didn't expect them to find here. Fu Weixin looked at Sun Chunhua and said, "So, you think they are fakes?" This one named Hainyo is not my daughter either? Before Sun Chunhua could speak, Lee Sankai spoke first. Sun Chunhua, we are not lying. We have evidence in our hands. My second sister spent $1 to buy this child from a human trafficker. The bag that wrapped the child is the evidence. Lee Sankai said, pointing to the piece of cloth in Fu Weixin's hand. He didn't believe that Sun Chunhua would not help him lie. If she dared to say that they were fake, then it would be a fight to the death. If they can't get any benefits, Sun Chunhua can forget about eating and drinking well in the city. Li Ernie also hurriedly said, That's it.
Our Hainyo is really
Your daughter, Chief. We have evidence. Sun Chunhua's face turned pale, and she shook her head and said, That's not necessarily true. I have seen this cloth. Sister, when Hui did use this cloth to swaddle her newborn baby. I just told him casually that day, but I never thought there would be such a coincidence in the world. Maybe. Hainyo is really. Fu Weixin's expression became a little strange. Fu Nanjing listened for a while, took a look at the dark-skinned Hainyo, and was speechless. If this could be his sister, he would just go and hit his head against the wall. If you want to come to the city to beg for money, you should find someone who is similar.
But
the matter of the cloth, looking at the expression of the old man, it doesn't seem to be false. If Sun Chunhua told them about it through gossip, why would she tell Li Ernie and the others such details? Or Aunt Sun was not satisfied with the wages offered by the Fu family, so she colluded with relatives in the countryside to cheat money?
no.
Aunt Sun's panic just now did not seem to be known in advance and colluded. Besides, Qingya is still Aunt Sun's niece. There is no need to find another niece to stuff into the Fu family. When thinking about these things in his mind, the silent old man Fu suddenly spoke majestically. This matter is of great importance, and no one can figure it out at the moment. How about this, Wei Xian? You ask the guards to send the 3 of them to stay in the guest house first. It's rare for them to come to Beijing, and it's the Spring Festival, so let them go around and take a few days to talk about this matter. Fu Wei Xian listened and nodded, indicating that he agreed. Dad is right. Let's do it this way first. Xiao Zhang, you drive them to the guest house to get a room and pay the room fee for a few days first. Li Sankai, Li Ernie, and Hainu couldn't help being happy after hearing this. What they said was true. After all, this was the first time they met, and you said that you found their daughter, who had been missing for more than 20 years. Anyone would need to digest this well before accepting it. What's more, they have already paid for the guest house for them. They were also asked to wander around Beijing during the Spring Festival, so they must have believed them for the most part. They will just wander around for a few days first, and then ask for compensation after Hainu recognizes her as their relative. As for the long-term plan of asking for money through Hainu in the future, that is a matter for the future, and there is no rush now. Fu Nanjing couldn't help but get angry after hearing this. What's wrong with the old man and dad today? Are they collectively confused? Do we have to wait for 2 days? They are clearly here to cheat money and extort money. Why don't we just kick them out? Grandpa, Dad, I think we don't need to talk about this matter after letting them stay for a few more days. How is this Hainu like you or my mom? This is such a liar. Fu Nanjing was yelled at by Fu Weixin before he could finish his words. Shut up. Do you have the right to speak here? There are so many children in the world who don't look like their parents. Besides, Hainyo has been doing farm work in the countryside all year round, so it's normal for her to be tanned. If you were in the countryside, you might not look like me and your mother as well as her.
Funanseng. Okay.
Just pretend I didn't say anything. Just recognize her. Don't recognize the wrong girl and regret it later. He slammed the door and walked out angrily. Sun Chunhua hurriedly chased him out and asked, Nanjing, it's time for dinner. Where are you going? Fu Nanjing said without even turning his head, I'm so angry. Let them eat by themselves. Sun Chunhua had to give up after hearing this. But she was slightly relieved while avoiding people. It seemed that she hadn't been exposed. What a close call. Fortunately, Lee Sankai was smarter than his sister Li Ernie, and he probably thought about her reaction in advance, knowing that she and they were in the same boat and had to cover up their lies. So he dared to come to the Fu family so unscrupulously and just followed her words. That black girl. She had seen her when she went back last time. She was Li Ernie's daughter. Humph. Is this to get his daughter to the Fu family so that he can keep cheating money in the future? What a beautiful dream. Judging from the reactions of Mr. Fu and Fu Weixin, they probably believed it a little, right? After all, she remembered the pattern of the cloth clearly, and it was indeed the same as the one she used to wrap the child. She really didn't expect that Li Ernie still kept it and was playing tricks on her. But don't be afraid. As long as Fu Weixin doesn't doubt her, even if they recognize He Nuo and let He Nuo come to the city to live with them, she will have plenty of ways to deal with this family of vampires in the future. Sun Chunhua quickly calculated in her mind and went back into the house. Just then, Xiao Zhang led Li Sankai, Li Ernie, and He Nuo out. Sun Chunhua subconsciously asked, "Are we taking them to that guest house?" Xiao Zhang smiled and said, "The chief has ordered that it's in the south of the city. The guest house over there is relatively empty, and the bus can go directly to the square, which is also convenient for them to go shopping." Sun Chunhua said, "Oh," but she felt something was wrong in her heart. The compound is in the north of the city, and the south of the city is not close to this place. Logically speaking, there is a clue about the daughter who has been missing for more than 20 years. Even if he is suspicious or cannot accept it for the time being, he should not be willing to let He Nuo, who might be his daughter, live so far away, right? What if she can't find it again? However, Xiao Zhang's next words dispelled Sun Chunhua's doubts.
Alas.
In the past few days, many people from other provinces have come to visit relatives or play, and the ghost houses in the city are almost full. Fu Nanzheng had been sulking for several days, and he refused to go home during the New Year. That's why he said when he went to the train station to pick up Xia Huanhuan, "It's not convenient at home these days." However, the next day after sending Xia Huanhuan to the train back to Mo County, Fu Weixin brought Li Sankai, Li Ernie, and He Nuo to the hospital to find Fu Nanzheng. Fu Nanzheng was so angry that he closed the door, and his father directly found the director of the hospital and then notified the whole hospital through the radio. "Fu Nanzheng, your father is waiting for you in the dean's office. Come here quickly." Play it on loop. Fu Nanzheng was so angry that he almost died, but he also knew his father's temper and methods. If he dared to hide, this broadcast would probably be broadcast for 3 days and 3 nights. Fu Nanzheng went to the dean's office with a stinky face. The dean was a kind old grandfather and gave the office to the father and son. Fu Weixin didn't waste any words and said, "Check their bodies and He Nuo's, test their blood, and see if there is anything wrong. If there is, prescribe some medicine for them to recuperate as soon as possible. If not, go to the Chinese medicine pharmacy to buy a ginseng and let them take it home to replenish their bodies." Li Sankai, Li Ernie, and He Nuo were all very happy. Originally, Xiao Zhang accompanied them to visit Jingshi for many days, and the Fu family didn't look for them again. They almost thought that the Fu family had seen through them, or that Sun Chunhua said something. Unexpectedly, Fu Weixin came to them in person today and even brought them to the hospital to let the doctors help them see the disease, and now he also wants to give them ginseng.
This
Must be to recognize He Nuo. Only then would he be so generous to them. Fu Nanzheng was reluctant at first. "Ginseng is not something I can get just by asking for it. Besides, they don't look sick. Why do they need a physical examination? And a blood test?" At this point, Fu Nanzheng shuddered and looked at Fu Weixin in surprise. He is a doctor after all. How could he forget? Can a blood test be used to verify it? As early as the 1920s, foreign medical scientists had discovered that there is a certain blood correlation between parents and children. Although there are accidents, it can still be used to a certain extent as a method to verify whether the child is the biological child of the parents.
Could it be that
Grandpa and Dad were pretending a few days ago? In fact, they don't believe that He Nu is a flesh and blood of the Fu family? I'll go right away. Fu Nanzheng continued to speak excitedly. Li Sankai couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. How could this person who had a look of disgust just now suddenly become so enthusiastic? Why did he?
Have a bad feeling?
After the blood test results came out, it showed that Li Sankai, Li Ernie, and Hainu were all type B blood. Fu Weixin's blood type is A, and Xiao Wenhui's blood type is O. Parents with blood types A and O generally will not give birth to children with type B blood. This result was what Fu Nanjing expected. Fu Nanjing showed the results directly to Fu Weixin. Fu Weixin looked at the results and was not shocked or shocked. Instead, it seemed as if he had expected such a result. Fu Nanjing looked at his father and then whispered, "Dad, did you and Grandpa never believe them from the beginning? What exactly are you planning?" As he was speaking, there was a commotion outside. Fu Weixin said lightly, "Let's go and take a look." Fu Nanjing followed him out. Suddenly, a group of comrades in police uniforms came over and surrounded Li Sankai, Li Ernie, and He Nua. Li Sankai and Li Ernie, right? The leading police officer asked seriously. The last time Li Sankai and Li Ernie saw this situation was when Lu Yuliang was arrested. When Li Ernie saw them, her legs went weak and she looked at her brother in panic. Sankai, what should we do?" Although Li Sankai was smarter and bolder than Li Ernie, his legs were weak at this moment. He stammered and said in a cowardly manner, "I
am Li Sankai. Comrade, what
do you want to talk to us about?"
I
can tell you we are relatives of the Fu family." The leading police officer sneered. "Relatives of the Fu family? Did you dream of getting close to them?" "Li Sankai, Li Ernie, we are arresting you two for suspected involvement in the trafficking of the daughter of the Fu family. Come with us to the police station." Li Ernie fainted after hearing this. He Nyo was so scared that she cried loudly. Doctors and nurses came up and pinched Li Ernie's philtrum and rescued her. Li Sankai was still quibbling. "Comrade, is there any misunderstanding here? How could we traffic the daughter of the Fu family? We found the daughter of the Fu family from the human traffickers and raised her. This is the daughter of the Fu family." The head of the Fu family also admitted it. But Li Ernie had already lost her temper. "Oh, Sun Chunhua, Lu Yuliang, you guys have killed me. It was all your fault for doing such a heinous thing, and now the retribution has come. Woo woo woo." Li Sankai was almost angry to death. His second sister was so cowardly. Others haven't said anything yet, but she fell down like beans. At this time, the police officers suddenly stood at attention and saluted. The leading police officer called out, "Hello, old chief." Li Sankai looked up and saw Fu Weixin and Fu Nanjing coming over. He was about to rush over for help, but was held down by two policemen and handcuffed. "Be honest," the leading police officer said. "Old chief, Widow Wang from Liujia village has been arrested." Widow Wang has also confessed that more than 20 years ago, it was Li Ernie and her man Lu Yuliang who sold a newborn baby girl to her and asked her to sell it. This baby girl might be the old leader's long-lost daughter. After hearing this, the last ray of hope in Li Sansai's eyes was extinguished in an instant. It's over. It's completely over. Even Widow Wang has been arrested. Everything is exposed. Fu Weixin nodded with a grim expression and said, "Thank you very much. I hope you can interrogate them quickly and find out where my daughter was abducted by these beasts." Sun Chunhua packed her bag and was about to run away. She had been restless these days, so she had been keeping an eye on the movements of Li Sankai and Li Ernie. Today, when she saw Fu Weixin taking them to the hospital, she secretly followed them. Therefore, she knew about the arrest of Li Sankai and his men at the first time. Fortunately, she had prepared to run away these days. She secretly packed up her savings over the years, as well as some simple clothes and luggage, and asked Fu Qingye to help her collect them first. Fu Qingye also moved out before the new year and lived in the dormitory of the art troupe. She was mainly a little afraid of Grandpa Fu and Fu Weixin, and felt that she was at home. She felt that she was not free, so she took the initiative to move out. However, although she lived in a dormitory and other people lived in a dormitory with several people, she still relied on the background of the Fu family to get a single-room dormitory and went back to tell Fu Weixin that it was standard. Now, Sun Chunhua did not dare to go back to the Fu family, so she hurried to the dormitory to find Fu Qingye and asked Fu Qingye to bring her the bag. After a long time, Fu Qingye finally came out with the bag, but the expression on his face was a little strange. Sun Chunhua forced a smile and tried to pretend that nothing happened and was about to raise her hand to take the bag. But Fu Qingye withdrew his hand, leaving her empty, and then asked faintly, "Aunt Sun, why do you suddenly want to go back to your hometown in the countryside? Didn't you just go back some time ago? Besides, aren't your relatives in the countryside now in Beijing?" Sun Chunhua was very anxious, and those policemen might come to arrest her and send her to labor reform at any time. "You kid. Why are you asking so many questions all of a sudden?" I'm just old, and when people get old, they like to reminisce about the past. I have been in the Fu family for so many years, and I often dream about my hometown recently. So I thought about going back to have a look. "Qingye, stop teasing Aunt Sun and give me the bag quickly." Fu Qingye smiled, but the smile did not reach her eyes.
She said, "Oh,
"So that's the case. But Aunt Sun, you don't need to bring so much money when you go back to your hometown, right? There are more than 1,000 yuan. There is no end to the help for poor relatives. Or do you plan to never come back after this departure, Aunt Sun?" Sun Chunhua's face turned pale. When she entrusted the bag to Fu Qingye, she clearly told her not to open it. Qingye has always been sensible and obedient. Why did she suddenly become disobedient in this matter?
why?"
Why would it be? Even if you let Aunt Sun go, Aunt Sun can't bear to part with you. Fu Qingye suddenly smiled with some guilt. "Aunt Sun, I'm sorry, I can't bear to part with you either. I will definitely miss you." Sun Chunhua wondered. Why did Qingye suddenly say that?
Why?
Should he say sorry to her? Suddenly someone shouted, "Here! Sun Chunhua is here." Sun Chunhua was almost pinned to the ground before she could escape. A policeman looked at Fu Qingye and asked, "It was you who made the call and reported that you had seen Sun Chunhua, right?" Fu Qingye was innocent and pitiful and even moved to tears. She nodded and sobbed. Yes.
She
is a helper in my family, but I have regarded her as my aunt since I was a child. She did such a heinous thing. I really don't want her to make the same mistake again. Sun Chunhua was stunned. It turned out it was Fu Qingye who called to report her? How could it be like this? Obviously. She had doted on Fu Qingye since she was a child, taking care of and doting on her as if she were her own daughter. Didn't she do that to Xiao Wenhui's child because she was afraid that after Xiao Wenhui gave birth to a daughter, she would no longer like Fu Qingye and would ignore her or even abandon her?
Now
She actually called to report her in person. "Fu Qingye, you ungrateful thing, have you forgotten how I raised you with all my hard work over the years? You actually called the police and asked them to arrest me. I did all that for you. Fu Qingye, you ungrateful wolf, you shall not die well." Sun Chunhua was so angry that she started to curse. Fu Qingye looked even more pitiful, and she gave in to the grievances and cried, "Aunt Sun, if you can feel better by scolding me, just go ahead. I really don't want to watch you make one mistake after another and be doomed to eternity." The policeman pressed Sun Chunhua hard and scolded, "Be honest." After having Sun Chunhua put into the police car, the policeman looked at Fu Qingye with sympathy and said, "Comrade, thank you for providing clues and putting justice above your own family. We will find out the truth as soon as possible." Fu Qingye wiped her tears and asked, "Comrade, I want to ask my sister. Is the lost child of our family, can we find her back?" The policeman thought she really cared about her sister, so he said, "Of course we can. I heard that the child was later picked up and raised by a couple. For details, we have to interrogate the suspect before we can be sure." Fu Qingye's heart tightened, and a flash of regret flashed in his eyes before he said, Is it like this? Please, you must help my family find my sister." After the police left, Fu Qingye hurried back to the house and cut a few onions, which made his eyes burst into tears. When his eyes were red and swollen from crying, he hurried back to the Fu family. All the members of the Fu family in Beijing gathered at home. Fu Nanjing smiled and said, "Grandpa, Dad, you are too patient. You almost fooled me." Fu Weixin rolled his eyes at him and said unhappily, "That's because you are stupid. You don't use your brain to think about things. It's only the first day they came, and you shouted that you didn't believe it and wanted to drive them out. If you really drive them out, wouldn't the clue be broken again? Don't you have to wait a few days and go to their hometown to check?" Grandpa Fu was also rarely happy and teased, "Alas, the young people nowadays are really worse than the previous generation." Fu Nanjing chuckled, gave a thumbs up, and said, "The old are still the best. I am convinced." Then he said indignantly, "But I really didn't expect Aunt Sun. That Sun Chunhua was so vicious. Our family treated her so well, but she actually stole my sister away and was so cruel that she asked Li Ernie's husband to throw her into the mountains to feed the wolves." Li Sankai and Li Ernie were not very stubborn. They told the story of how Sun Chunhua asked them to silence the child, and how they sold the child to human traffickers because they couldn't bear to do it. Later, when Sun Chunhua came back and asked about it, they went to find the child for a reward, and then they remembered that they could replace the child inexplicably, so they confessed everything. Fu Qingye walked in and just heard these words. "Grandpa, Dad, third brother, I'm back," Fu Qingye said, and then asked anxiously, "Dad, what is going on? Those people and that black girl, isn't she my sister? And Aunt Sun, no. That's Sun Chunhua. How could she do such a heartless thing?" Fu Nanjing couldn't help frowning when he heard Fu Qingye say this. No matter how hateful Sun Chunhua was, she had been absolutely kind to Fu Qingye over the years, and she loved him more than her own mother. However, Sun Chunhua's deeds had just been exposed, and Fu Qingye was so eager to draw a line, which was a bit too heartless. Fu Weixin nodded and said, "Qingye's back? Sun Chunhua is really abominable. Wenhui was so good to her and took her in, but she was so cruel. If she hadn't let it slip, I wouldn't have suspected her." "Let it slip? Dad, where did she let it slip?"
Fu Nanzeng asked puzzledly.
Fu Weixin sighed and said, "Your mother once told me that she used the cloth I bought for her to swaddle your sister, saying that this was one of the clues. I have never told anyone about this. Although Sun Chunhua was sent by your grandmother to pick up your mother and sister, she did not arrive until the morning of the second day after your sister went missing. In other words, she had never seen your sister, and it was even more impossible for her to describe the pattern of the cloth in detail, so that Li Sankai and Li Ernie could find a cloth with the same pattern as evidence. However, she said that day that she had seen the cloth. The only explanation is that Sun Chunhua really had seen the cloth and your sister." Fu Nanjing listened and suddenly realized, so that's how it is. That Sun Chunhua is really cunning. As soon as Li Sankai and Li Ernie were arrested, she disappeared. Even her luggage had been packed long ago. I think she had already prepared to escape. I don't know if she was caught or not. Old Master Fu sneered. "She can't escape. Dare to touch our Fu family's granddaughter. Want to run away? Dream on." Fu Qingye shuddered and said, "Actually, Grandpa, Dad, Sun Chunhua has been arrested. She asked me to keep her luggage and I didn't know she was so bad, so I agreed. Just now she came to me, and I hated her for being so cruel to hurt my sister, so I called the police to arrest her.
And
This 500 yuan is from her luggage, and it must be money stolen from our family," Fu Qingye said, handing 500 yuan to Fu Weixin. In fact, there was 15,000, but Fu Qingye kept 1,000. The Fu family has strict education, and the monthly living expenses and pocket money are only a few yuan. She is now a bencher in the art troupe, and at most 30 yuan a month, which is not enough to spend. That's 1,000 yuan. She will be crazy to return it all to the Fu family. Anyway, Sun Chunhua was arrested, and no one knew how much money she really had. Fu Nanjing listened to this. Although it was a great relief that Sun Chunhua was arrested, he looked down on Fu Qingye's sacrifice of her own family for the sake of justice. Fu Weixin was also stunned for a moment, and then said, "So that's the case? In any case, Sun Chunhua was arrested, which is a great relief. Qingye, you did the right thing. Fu Qingye felt a little relieved and asked tentatively, "This is what I should do. I also hope to find my sister as soon as possible. By the way, who is your sister? Have you found any other information?" At this time, the phone in the Fu family rang. Telephones were not popular in this era, but the people living in the compound were all high-level cadres, so for work needs, they all installed telephones one after another. Fu Weixin went over to answer the phone, and it turned out that it was the chief of the police station who called in person, reporting that the whereabouts of the Fu family's daughter had been found. Fu Weixin was so excited that he almost fainted. He asked many questions at once. Found her? Really? Where is she? What's her surname now? What's her name? How is she doing? After hearing what he said, the other members of the Fu family also excitedly went to the phone, trying to hear the answer from the person on the phone. The chief's daughter is still near Beijing, in a village under a county called Mo County, called Qingshui Village. I heard from Li Sankai and Li Ernie that they went there in person and saw the chief's daughter. They said her surname is Xia Huan, and she is married. Her husband's surname is Li or Li. The receiver slipped from Fu Weixin's hand, and he felt a black screen in front of his eyes, and he fell to the ground all of a sudden. Fu Nanjing was sharp-eyed and quickly supported him, while shouting worriedly, Dad, are you okay?" He quickly checked Fu Weixin. Old Master Fu was also very anxious and shouted, "Nanjing, hurry up. Help your dad lie down on the sofa over there." What was said on the phone?
Was it Cici?
Fu Weixin's 3 sons were named Fu Dongjin, Fu Beifa, and Fu Nanjing, each of whom took a character from the east, south, west, and north. As for the youngest daughter, Fu Weixin and Xiao Wenhui had already decided that if it was still a son, she would be named Xixing, and if it was a daughter, she would be named Cici. Who would have thought that this name had not even been called once, and the child? Fu Weixin calmed down. The man who had been strong all his life also had tears in his eyes. He waved his hand and said, "Dad, Cici." "No, the child now has a new name, Huan. She's fine. God has mercy on her and has sent her back to us a long time ago." Huan? Xia Huan? Is it really her? Fu Nanjing was overjoyed. "Grandpa, Dad, I told you a long time ago. Huan looks so much like Mom. Even if there's no evidence, she must be my sister." After hearing this, Grandpa Fu's turbid eyes couldn't help but gleam with tears. He nodded and said, "Oh, it's really Huan. It's really her. Good." Fu Weixin said, "Nanjing, quickly arrange a car. I'm going to tell your mom." Fu Nanjing was so happy that he didn't know what to do first. After hearing what Fu Weixin said, he knew that his father was going to his mother's grave and immediately said, "Dad, I'll contact Xiaozhong immediately and ask him to come over.
And
I'll send a telegram to my eldest and second brothers to tell them the good news. And Li Zhan. I never thought that Li Zhan would actually become my brother-in-law. Also, Dad, now that we visited my mom, shouldn't we buy train tickets immediately to go to Mo County and pick up Huan to Beijing?" Fu Weixin hesitated for a moment when he heard this. Then he sighed and said, "Let's tell your mom about picking up Huan, and then we'll think about how to tell Huan." Old man Fu also sighed and said, "Alas, Huan has grown up to this size because of her adoptive parents. In the past, your dad and I sent people to Huan's hometown to inquire, but we only found out that Huan was the surviving twin sister born to her parents. It can be seen that they have raised Huan as their own daughter for so many years. We can't just go and recognize our relatives without saying hello to their adoptive parents just because they are Huan's blood relatives." After hearing this, Fu Nanjing knew that what his grandfather said made sense. He couldn't help but sigh and said, "Oh, it's so hard to find my sister, but I still have to worry about this and that. It's really frustrating." Fu Weixin said, "As long as I know that your sister is still alive, and she is married to such a good husband like Li Zhan, and has 3 lovely triplets, even if she finally refuses to recognize me as her father, I will.
Die Witwe regrets.
When I meet your mother 100 years later, I won't be afraid of her blaming me." Fu Nanjing said, "Pooh, Pooh, pooh. Dad, why are you saying such depressing words? Our family owes my sister for so many years. We must recognize her and make up for it. Even if you can refuse to recognize her, I must recognize her. Fu Weixing glared at him and said angrily, Brat, that was my worst-case scenario assumption. Who said you don't recognize her? Fu Qingye looked at the Fu family who were so happy and pretended to be happy too. But in his heart, it was more painful than being pierced by thousands of arrows. Xia Huanhuan, the daughter of the Fu family who had been missing for many years, turned out to be that Xia Huanhuan? How could she, a country girl, be so lucky? Such a good life? Not only did she marry Li Zhan, but now she has jumped from a country woman to a high-ranking official in the city. The daughter of a family.
Why?
Why has she never been so lucky? Since Sun Chunhua had done all that back then, why didn't she strangle the baby to death herself? If that were the case, how could today's incident happen? Now that the Fu family's biological daughter has been found, what about her? The adopted daughter? Will she be driven out of the Fu family? Even if she is not driven out, how can she, an adopted daughter, compare with the biological daughter? Especially, she had offended Xia Huanhuan before. How could Xia Huanhuan tolerate her? Thinking of this, Fu Qingye felt like sitting on pins and needles, but she had to pretend to be happy. So, Huanhuan is your younger sister? This is really... what a coincidence, and so good. Grandpa, Dad, when I was working in the commune where Qingshui village is located, Huanhuan and I were like a sister. If you plan to bring Huanhuan back, I'm afraid she won't be able to adapt to the new home. Otherwise, I'd better move back and keep her company. She must not let Xia Huanhuan have the chance to squeeze her out. She was crazy a few years ago, and she felt that living in the Fu family was too depressing and wanted to move out to live independently. Now she wants to move back, and she has to lie and make excuses. Before Fu Weixing and the old man spoke, Fu Nanjing said calmly, I think it's better to forget it. Qingye, I heard that you have asked the regiment to arrange a separate dormitory for you because you sleep too lightly and will suffer from insomnia if you sleep with others. Now you say you want to move back. What's the big deal? Besides, even if Huanhuan wants to come back to live, she must bring the triplets, Xiaowen, Xiaowu, and Beibei back together, and the house is not big enough for them to live in. Besides, do you think Huanhuan has a good relationship with you? Why did you confront Huanhuan when Huanhuan and Li Zhan came to visit last time? You can't tell that you have a good relationship. Fu Qingye glanced at Fu Nanjing with a gloomy and angry look. He kicked her out before he even recognized her. Fu Weixing pondered for a moment and said, Qingye, Nanjing is right. You'd better stay in the dormitory these days. Wait until Huanhuan is settled and adapted to life in our home, then we can talk about other things. Fu Qingye still wanted to fight for it, so he said, but, is Aunt's sister, Huanhuan, married?
Will she
live in Beijing permanently? Will Li Zhan have an excuse? Fu Weixing forgot about this. He was thinking about keeping his daughter and grandchildren in the Fu family forever. How lively it would be. But what Fu Qingye said was not unreasonable. After all, Huanhuan was already someone else's wife. How could she live in her parents' home after getting married? However, Fu Nanjing said coldly, since Huanhuan is a child of the Fu family, her rural household registration must be transferred to an urban household registration, and she must find a job in the city in the future. Li Zhan has no house in Beijing, so Huanhuan must live in the Fu family. Dad, Grandpa, and I have no objection. Fu Qingye, why do I sound like you don't want Huanhuan to come home to live? Aren't you meddling too much? Fu Qingye bit his lip. No. Third brother, why do you think of me like this? I swear I never have such an idea. Okay. Now the most urgent task is to quickly recognize Huanhuan as a relative. Nanjing, you go and make the arrangements. I also want to go to Qingshui village in person to talk to Huanhuan's adoptive parents.
just drive there?
It's faster than the train, Grandpa Fu said majestically. After hearing this, Fu Nanjing quickly said, Yes. We almost delayed the matter. I'll arrange it right away. But, Grandpa, let's take the sleeper train. You are old, and it will take 4 or 5 hours to drive there by car. I'm afraid your body can't handle it. Let's contact Mo County in advance and ask them to arrange a jeep, and then take a car to Qingshui village from there, which will be better. Although Grandpa Fu was anxious, he was also afraid that his body would fail and delay the time, so he nodded and agreed. Then you go and do it quickly. Soon. The guard Xiao Zhang drove over and took Fu Weixin and Fu Nanjing to Xiao Wenhui's grave first. Fu Weixin looked at the still young face of Xiao Wenhui in the photo and couldn't help choking up and said, "Wenhui, we finally found our daughter. She is very good and looks like you. And her husband is also very good. The young man who came to see you before, his name is Li Zhan. Huan also gave birth to 3 big fat boys. When we bring our daughter home, I will immediately bring her and the 3 little guys she gave birth to see you and call you mom and grandma. When Hui you, be patient for a few days, I will definitely be quicker." After returning from the cemetery, they did not delay much and took Mr. Fu into the car. Fu Weixin accompanied them in the back seat, Fu Nanjing sat in the co-pilot, and a guard drove. They first went to major department stores in Beijing and used money and tickets to buy a lot of noodles, rice, and other refined noodles, as well as bacon and sausage, fresh pork, mutton, beef, cabbage, peach cakes, white rabbit candies, sesame candies, etc. for the children's sleeves. They prepared hundreds of yuan worth of things and sent them to the station. Because the head of the military region and the old head were going out, Xiao Zhang and another guard also went with them. The train tickets must be soft sleeper treatment, but because it was a private matter of the Fu family, the money was still paid. The train arrived in Mo County 5 or 6 hours later. Even the county magistrate of Mo County was alarmed and went to the train station to pick them up in person. The guest house that was originally arranged was said to be late, so they stayed in the county for one night and went back early the next morning, but it was also rejected by the Fu family. The county magistrate had no choice but to personally accompany Mr. Fu, Fu Weixin, and Fu Nanjing to Qingshui village by car. However, Fu Weixin declined. They had to talk to Xia Shuangshan and Lin Yuru first to see if they were willing to recognize each other before moving on to the next step. If so many people went there, wouldn't it be like forcing them to agree? The county magistrate had no choice but to send someone who knew the way to drive them there. Secretary Zhao had heard the news in advance. It was already strange that the county magistrate was going to inspect the countryside in person, and it was even more incredible that he specifically said he was going to Qingshui village. The village cadres held an emergency meeting, fearing that their secret planting of ginseng in the mountains had been exposed. Secretary Zhao calmed down and said, "Anyway, we have already greeted everyone. If they ask about the things in the mountains, everyone should be careful and don't let it slip." Everyone heard it, and there was no other way. They could only nod and hurry to tell the villagers, especially those who were not careful. In the evening, Secretary Zhao led the village cadres to wait for the county magistrate to come to the village. Soon, the sentry outside the village saw the jeep and ran back and shouted, "Here it comes! Here it comes!" Fu Weixin was helpless when he saw such a big battle. If he had known this matter, he would not have let the old man come with them. They drove here by themselves and would not have alarmed the county. Fu Nanjing also knew that it was his bad idea that made trouble and smiled and said, "No, it's okay. I think it's just a few village cadres and others will definitely not know." Fortunately, the comrades who accompanied him got off the car first and went to find Secretary Zhao to explain. Secretary Zhao was still wondering. "Comrade, didn't you say that the county magistrate was coming?" The comrade said, "Secretary Zhao, I'm sorry, the county magistrate canceled his trip at the last minute. The person in the car is a leader from Beijing. He wanted to be low-key and didn't want everyone to know, so he didn't let the county magistrate accompany him. Just let the cadres disperse. They want to find members of your commune, named Xia Shuangshan and Lin Yuru, and want to meet and talk. See if you can take them directly to Xia Shuangshan's home." Secretary Zhao heard that it seemed that they were not here for personal reasons, so he breathed a sigh of relief and said, "So that's the case. Okay, I'll let all the cadres disperse. Xia Shuangshan is still living in Xiajia village, and Lin Yuru is helping to take care of the children at her daughter's home in Qingshui village. Who should we look for first?" After hearing this, The comrade went to ask for instructions. Fu Weixin and the others didn't want to scare Xia Huanhuan for the time being, so they immediately said, "Let's go to Xiajia village." Xia Shuangshan had returned from work in the evening. Although it was only the 6th day of the Lunar New Year, he would still go out to work when there was work. Today, he went to repair the cattle pen that was damaged by the heavy snow for the brigade next door. Seeing Secretary Zhao leading a few neatly dressed people who looked like city people to find him, Xia Shuangshan couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart. How could he, a peasant, know any city people? Therefore, his first reaction was that these people might be Wanner's biological parents. Lin Yuru mentioned to him that Li Sankai and Li Ernie had come last time, and naturally told him that Wanner's biological parents were people in the city who ate commercial grain. However, Wanner was stubborn and didn't recognize them. Maybe the two of them went to find Wanner's biological parents. "You. Who are you? What do you want to see me for?" Secretary Zhao introduced. "Xia Shuangshan, these are leaders from Beijing, surnamed Fu." "Leader Fu, this is Xia Shuangshan you're looking for." "Then you guys chat. I see it's getting dark. Let's stay in the village tonight. I'll go make some arrangements." Fu Nanjing said quickly. Secretary Zhao, "No need to bother. Let's see the situation. If it doesn't work, we'll go back to the county town overnight." Xia Shuangshan said, "If the leaders don't mind, my house is also newly built. You can stay at my house tonight. It may be a little colder than in the city." The Fu family was moved when they heard this. The country people are simple and honest, and Xia Shuangshan obviously didn't say this because they are leaders, but simply because he is warm to people. Immediately, Xia Shuangshan went to the yard to bring in a bunch of firewood that had been chopped into small pieces and used a match to ignite the corn bag in a small fire trough made of bricks and started a fire. "You guys warm yourself up by the fire first. I'll go boil some water for you," Xia Shuangshan said, and was about to go to the kitchen. Grandpa Fu said, "Fellow villager, don't bother. We're not thirsty. Just sit down and let's talk." Xia Shuangshan had no choice but to sit down after hearing this. Although he guessed who they might be, he was actually happy and sad. He was happy that his daughter's biological parents had come, and their conditions were better than his family, so Wanner wouldn't have to suffer any more in the future. But he was sad that in this case, Wanner might have to move to Beijing City to live, and in the future, it would be difficult for them to meet again. So, he fumbled around here and there, trying to delay the time of the showdown even a little bit. Grandpa Fu said to Fu Nanjing, "Nanjing, you and Xiaozhong and the others move all the things you brought from the car into the house." Fu Nanjing agreed and went to move things with 2 guards and comrades from the county who accompanied them. Xia Shuangshan looked at the big bags of flour and rice, as well as bacon, fresh pork, beef, mutton, and so on that were moved in. He stood up anxiously and said, "What are you doing? So many things. How can I accept them?" Fu Weixin walked over and pulled Xia Shuangshan back to sit on the stool, saying, "Fellow villager, don't be anxious. We have no ill intentions. Just listen to us and talk slowly." He paused for a moment before continuing, "Fellow villager, do you have a daughter named Xia Huanhuan?" When Xia Shuangshan heard him ask this, he knew that he had guessed right. He looked at Grandpa Fu, then at Fu Weixin, and then answered with some stammering, "Yes." "So what? However, Wanner is my daughter. Don't think that you can recognize her back with these things and stop her from recognizing me as her father." Fu Weixin was a little stunned, and then laughed. "So, fellow villager, you've already guessed our identity?" A trace of panic flashed across Xia Shuangshan's face, and he looked away. Fu Weixin said sincerely, "Fellow countryman, it's a bit awkward to call you that. How about this, your last name is Xia, but you are not as old as me, so I will call you Lao Xia. Is that okay with you?" Xia Shuangshan nodded and said, "You can call her anything." Fu Weixin then continued, "Old Xia, I know that Huanhuan was raised by you, and you treat her as your own daughter." Xia Shuangshan was stunned for a moment and asked, "You haven't seen Huanhuan yet?" Fu Nanjing interrupted and explained, "Yes, I have seen her. Uncle Xia, your son-in-law Li Zhan is my father's most respected and appreciated subordinate. The last time Huanhuan took the children to visit relatives in Beijing, Li Zhan took Huanhuan and the children to my house for dinner. However, Huan doesn't know that we are her relatives yet. We just found out about this, so we rushed here in a hurry. Xia Shuangshan widened his eyes. Really?
Have you met Waner?
Is there such a coincidence in the world? Has Waner met her biological parents before? This must be the so-called arrangement of God, right? Fu Weishi nodded and said, "We were also shocked when we saw her for the first time. We thought, how could she look exactly like her mother? And my wife." Later, we also checked, but after asking around, we found out that Huan was one of the twins born to you and your wife. Although we still had doubts, we had no other evidence, so the matter was shelved. Unexpectedly, during the Spring Festival, two people named Li Sankai and Li Ernie came to my house and said that they had found our lost daughter, but what they brought was actually Li Ernie's own daughter. Later, we found out and called the police. After interrogation, they told us that my daughter was adopted by you. We rushed here rashly. Xia Shuangshan listened and said, "Yes, I remember that Li Sankai and Li Ernie. I went to their village to inquire about them. I thought Li Ernie and her husband were Waner's biological parents, and I was afraid that they would drag Waner down. It turned out that I was wrong." Grandpa Fu spoke at this time. "Old Xia, today our family of 3 generations hurried here, and we must be very eager to recognize Huan. We owe her too much, and we just want to compensate her as much as possible.
But
we want to recognize her in our hearts, and you and your wife have worked hard to raise her. The grace of raising is greater than the grace of giving birth. We came to you first just to get your consent as a father, and then recognize her. If you don't want to, then this matter. We won't mention it anymore. Grandpa." Fu Nanjing shouted immediately after hearing what Grandpa Fu said. After looking for his sister for so many years, he finally found her. How can he just not recognize her? Fu Weixin said majestically, "Shut up. Listen to your grandpa." Mr. Fu continued, "However, there is one thing you have to promise us. That is, even if we don't recognize each other, we still want to do our best to make up for the child. We want to take Huan to Beijing, transfer her household registration to Beijing, find her a job, and let her live in Beijing with the children in the future. The Fu family originally had a courtyard house in Beijing, but now it is lent to the government and distributed to other residents. When the time comes, we will take it back and let Huan and the children live in that courtyard house. The place is big enough, so let her take you and your wife over, and you can help her look after the children while you have your children and grandchildren around you, and live out your life in peace." Fu Weixin also said sincerely, "Old Xia, don't worry. As long as you don't nod, Huan will never know her life experience." Xia Shuangshan was touched when he heard this. Although he had never seen a courtyard house, when he was working as a bricklayer, he heard from people who had seen the world in Beijing that courtyard houses were large courtyards where princes and nobles lived in the past, and they were very expensive. They came to the village in the county car, and were sent by people arranged by the county magistrate himself. Secretary Zhao just said that the county magistrate almost accompanied them. If someone can be accompanied by the county magistrate himself, he must be a big shot in Beijing. What they can provide to Waner is something that he and Lin Yuru can never give even if they work hard for 10 lifetimes. If Waner recognized them, it would definitely be much better than staying in this small village. He and Lin Yuru told each other honestly how much suffering and grievances had Waner suffered following them over the years. Now, what qualifications do they have to stop Waner from recognizing her parents? This was something he and Lin Yuru had figured out before. Otherwise, when Xia Shuangshan came back from Liujia village last time, they would not have told Waner that they were not her biological parents. However, before agreeing to their recognition, there were still some things he had to clarify. Xia Shuangshan pondered for a moment, then cleared his throat and asked, "Waner's mother and I are not the kind of people who want to keep Waner and suffer with us in the countryside. As long as her biological parents don't drag her down, we won't stop her from recognizing her parents." Grandpa Fu, Fu Weixin, and Fu Nanjing were all refreshed when they heard this. Fu Nanjing asked happily, "Uncle Xia, are you serious? Do you really agree to Waner recognizing us?" Xia Shuangshan immediately raised his voice and emphasized, "But you must first explain clearly why you lost Waner. Is it because you favor boys over girls and disliked that she was a girl, so you deliberately didn't want her? Although this possibility is relatively low, but if it is really the case, he would never agree to it even if he was beaten to death. Fu Nanjing breathed a sigh of relief and said with a smile, Uncle Xia, so this is what you are asking? Then don't worry. My parents gave birth to 3 sons in one breath, and they were looking forward to having a daughter. If we hadn't met something worse than an animal, Huan would definitely be the most precious little princess in our family. Fu Weixin glared at Fu Nanjing and said, Say less, no one thinks you are dumb. As he said this, he told Xia Shuangshan about how Xiao Wenhui took Sun Chunhua in because she felt sorry for her and how she later became pregnant and had to leave Beijing for work. She gave birth to a daughter in a refugee camp with harsh conditions, but was taken away by Sun Chunhua's worse-than-pigs and dogs Li Ernie, and how the daughter later fell into the hands of human traffickers. Xia Shuangshan was also filled with righteous indignation and stood up from the stool several times. That Sun Chunhua, how could she be so bad? Your wife took her in, but instead of expressing gratitude, she actually stole Huan and threw her to the mountains to feed the wolves. So vicious. Fu Weixin felt extremely guilty and said, I wish I could slap myself dozens of times now. The culprit who stole the child and harmed Wenhui has been in the Fu family for more than 20 years, and I never suspected or discovered it. It's so stupid. If he had discovered Sun Chunhua's viciousness at the first time, Huan might have been found long ago, and Wenhui might. She would not have died so early, and she would not have blamed herself and regretted so much, and died with her eyes open. Xia Shuangshan sighed, feeling a little reluctant in his heart, and asked sympathetically, Then, Wanner's biological mother. Fu Weixin's eyes flashed with pain, and he said in a hoarse voice, She has passed away. Xia Shuangshan felt very uncomfortable after hearing this, and said hesitantly, Oh, Wanner would definitely be sad if she knew. Fu Nanjing said, Uncle Xia, after my sister was stolen, my mother began to fall ill, and she died of a serious illness 2 years later. Before she died, she also asked my father to find their daughter, even if it took him a lifetime. Uncle Xia, even if it is to fulfill my mother's dying wish, please agree to let Huan recognize us. Xia Shuangshan sighed and said, I didn't mean to cause you sadness. That is, if you deliberately abandon Wanner because you favored boys over girls, then no matter how rich your family is, I would not agree. But I didn't expect. There are so many twists and turns here. I won't stop you from recognizing Huan, but it also depends on Huan's attitude. That child has a stubborn temper. If she refuses to recognize you, then there is nothing I can do. Grandpa Fu Weixin and Fu Nanjing all showed joy on their faces when they saw Xia Shuangshan loosen up. Old Xia, thank you. Then wait until tomorrow morning. Fu Weixin said excitedly. What are we waiting for tomorrow morning? I haven't seen my granddaughter for a long time. You can wait if you want. Nanjing, push me to Qingshui village to see your sister immediately. Grandpa Fu interrupted his son mercilessly and urged Fu Nanjing. Fu Nanjing was dumbfounded. Was this the same old man who had a stern face and said seriously like a lord, As long as you don't agree, we will never mention the fact that we are Huan's relatives. Grandpa Fu saw that Fu Nanjing was stunned and didn't understand. He knocked on the ground with his cane and scolded, Why are you still standing there like an idiot? How come at the critical moment, you are the same as your dad, like a piece of wood?
Fu Weixin. Fu Nanjing.
Dad, it's getting dark. Huan is probably busy preparing dinner and taking care of the little ones. Let's not make trouble. Besides, we 4 or 5 grown men have to eat a lot. Li Zhan's allowance is not much to begin with, and there may not be much food at home. Let's go back to the county town first, and wait until tomorrow night. Old Master Fu glanced at him and thought it made sense. He had waited for so many years, so what could he miss just one night? Li Zhan, that kid, has such a low allowance, and Huan and the children must be living a tight life. His precious granddaughter must have suffered.
Oh.
That's fine. Go back tonight and come back tomorrow morning. By the way, Xiaozhong, from now on, after receiving the subsidy in my name every month, I will take out half of it and remit it directly to Huan Huan. Grandpa Fu was demoted from the position of commander, and now he has a monthly salary of 160 yuan. This is still Grandpa Fu, who took the initiative to ask for a discount. In fact, according to his position, the standard is 200. After hearing this, Fu Weixin hurriedly said, "Dad, why do you need to pay for this money? It's my job as a father." Grandpa Fu glanced at Fu Weixin and said, "Give as much as you want. I want to give it to my granddaughter and great-grandsons. Do you need a father like you who hasn't recognized Huan Huan yet to pretend to be generous and help her refuse?"
Fu Weixin.
"Dad, Huan Huan hasn't recognized you yet." Grandpa Fu. "Get out of the way." Xiao Zhang and another guard almost couldn't hold back their laughter. They have been working as guards for the two leaders for a long time, and this is the first time they have seen two serious bosses bickering in such a down-to-earth way, like a loving father and a filial son. Fu Nanjing felt sour in his heart and said with a servile smile, "Grandpa, Dad, my money every month is not enough. Why don't you two help me a little? I don't want half, a quarter will be fine." This time, Grandpa Fu and Fu Weixin had a tacit understanding and looked at Fu Nanjing unhappily. "Get out." Fu Weixin did not forget to add a stab. "Wait until you give birth to 3 big fat boys for our Fu family like your sister, and then ask me for money."
Fu Nanseng.
There's no need to be so blatant and crazy to be partial, right? However, he has no objection to favoring his sister. If it weren't for his low salary and Li Zhan being jealous, he would have wanted to give some subsidies to his sister. Xia Shuangshan looked at the 3 men of the Fu family with a dull look on his face when they suddenly changed their demeanor. He didn't know how to react.
Well,
Wanner's house is quite big, and the houses left by Xiaowen and Xiaowu's father are also empty. If you don't mind, you can stay in the village tonight. There's enough room. I'll take you to see Wanner now. It's just time for dinner. Although they are all simple meals in the countryside, who would chase guests away at dinner time. If it gets out, the villagers will laugh at us for being stingy. Grandpa Fu, Fu Weixin, and Fu Nanjing were stunned. But you still have Huan Huan's family rations at home. Can they be eaten? Xia Shuangshan said to the supplies that Fu Nanjing and his team had just moved in. Didn't you bring so much food with you? It must be enough to eat. The 3 generations of the Fu family didn't know what to say for a moment. They brought these things here to thank Xia Shuangshan and Lin Yiru for raising Huan Huan for so many years, of course. This was only the first time, not the last time, but in the end, they left them with food. At that moment, Xia Shuangshan took them to Qingshui village. Xia Huan and Lin Yiru were indeed preparing dinner. Although the Chinese New Year had just passed, it was not yet the 15th day of the first lunar month, and the atmosphere of the Chinese New Year had not yet dissipated. On the 25th day of the 12th lunar month last year, the day when Xia Huan set out to find Li Zhan, the village slaughtered 2 big fat pigs. This year, because Li Zhan also came back during the wheat harvest, he helped with the heavy work for several days and got a lot of work points. In addition to handing in a few old hens, as well as the harvest of lotus roots and fish in the lotus pond, he also accumulated a lot of work points and brought back almost 10 kilograms of meat. In addition to chopping it up to make dumplings, there were still several pounds left, so Lin Yiru pickled them with salt and hung them outside in the cold air for preservation. In addition, there were sausages stuffed in the fall. Tonight, Xia Huan went to the cellar to get some sweet potatoes, a white radish, a large cabbage, and 2 winter bamboo shoots. She fried the bamboo shoots with sausages, stewed the white radish and cabbage with bacon, and then simmered a handful of sweet potato powder. It was quite delicious. Xiaowen, Xiaowu, and Beibei were playing eagle catches chicken with the triplets in the yard. Xiaowen was the mother hen, chasing Beibei and the 3 little tails behind her, while Xiaowu was running left and right, trying to catch Yan Yan, who was at the end of the team. Xia Shuangshan came in at this time and shouted, "Ouch! It just snowed. The ground is so slippery, and you're still running wildly in the yard. You might fall down." When the 6 little guys saw Xia Shuangshan bringing a group of strangers into their home, they stopped playing eagle catches chicken and hid behind Xiaowen, Xiaowu, and Beibei one by one. They poked out half of their heads. looked up with almost identical little faces, and looked at them blankly and timidly. Grandpa Fu and Fu Weixin's hearts melted when they saw them. The last time Xia Huanhuan and Li Zhan brought the three little guys to the Fu family, they were all less than 1 year old. They lay obediently in the stroller, and they were as delicate as jade. When they were picked up by them, they grinned and laughed happily. So adorable. Unexpectedly, when I saw them again, the three little guys were already more than 2 years old. They could run and make noise and play games with their brothers and sisters. Fu Nanjing was the first one who couldn't help it. He walked over with starry eyes, squatted down, smiled gently. Yan Yan Ye Yao Yao, you have grown up so much. Do you still remember your uncle? Pri. Do you still remember your third uncle? The triplets widened their big eyes curiously and asked in surprise. Uncle, how do you know our names?
Funanseng.
Be good, I'm not uncle, I'm third uncle. Be good, call me third uncle. Xiaowen quickly opened his arms and protected Yan Yan behind him, saying righteously, Uncle, who are you? Why do you want to get close to my brothers? We won't be fooled. Don't even think about deceiving us. Ever since the last time the triplets were kidnapped by the bandits secretly colluded by Lu Lan, Xiaowen has been more vigilant. Now that so many strangers have come to the house at once, as the eldest brother, he naturally has to be the first to stand up and protect his younger brothers. When Xiaowu and Beibei saw this, they also quickly protected Yi Yi and Yao Yao behind them and whispered, Yi Yi and Yao Yao, be good, your brother and sister will not let the bad guys kidnap you again. When Yan Yan, Ye and Yao Yao heard their brothers and sisters saying that they were bad people, they stomped their feet angrily and repeated in a baby voice, well, bad people.
Funanseng.
Being treated as a bad guy by the nephews. Fu Weixin and Old Man Fu had come over happily, but now they were treated as bad guys by the children. They were helpless and cast reproachful eyes at Fu Nanjing. If it weren't for this stupid grandson's son, who rashly went up and made the children alert, could they be regarded as bad guys together? Xia Shuangshan smiled and was about to explain to the children. At this time, Xia Huanhuan came out of the kitchen and said with a smile, Dad, you came at the right time. Halfway through the words, Fu Weixin and Old Man Fu had come over happily, but now they were treated as bad guys by the children. They were helpless and cast reproachful eyes at Fu Nanjing.
What
is going on? How could the three people who were least likely to appear in her yard appear out of nowhere?
could it be?
Xia Huanhuan's heart suddenly tightened, and she looked at the three people in horror and asked in a trembling voice, Grandpa Fu, Uncle Fu, third brother Fu, why are you here? Did something happen to Li Zhan? The three generations of the Fu family and Xia Shuangshan couldn't help being stunned for a moment. Fu Nanjing reacted and quickly smiled. Huan, don't worry. Li Zhan is fine. We came here for other things. Xia Shuangshan finally understood and said, Waner they are. But Fu Weixin suddenly interrupted Xia Shuangshan. Old Xia. He smiled a little unnaturally and said, Your grandfather Fu and Nanjing and I just came to your county to do things, and then I remembered that Li Zhan's hometown is nearby, so I came to see you and the children.
Dad. Fu Nanzeng shouted helplessly.
Xia Shuangshan was also a little puzzled after listening to Fu Weixin's words. Just now in Xiajia village, the three grandfathers and grandchildren were as happy as children. Why did they deny each other when the time came? Old Master Fu sighed and said, Forget it, take your time. Fu Weixin also felt that he was too indecisive.
But
he had been looking for his daughter for more than 20 years, and he knew without thinking that she must have suffered a lot in the countryside, even if she had adoptive parents who loved her. He was a little scared, afraid that Huan would not forgive him, would not recognize him, and would blame her for not finding him earlier. Xia Huan looked at their charades and thought it would be strange if they believed what they said. However, since they refused to say, she was not in a hurry to know, so she smiled and said, Is that so? That's great. Try my and my mother's cooking tonight, and live in the village tonight. It's just that the conditions at home are definitely not comparable to those in Beijing. Grandpa and uncle, third brother, please don't think it's too simple. For Li Zhan's sake, she couldn't neglect the Fu family. Xia Huanhuan was warm and thoughtful, and did everything perfectly. Fu Weixin quickly asked Xiao Zhang and Xiao Sun, as well as Fu Nanjing, to take flour, rice, and fresh pork, beef and mutton to the kitchen. Xia Huanhuan couldn't help but be stunned.
This.
Coming to my house for a meal, and bringing your own dry food? However, it would be a waste if you don't eat it, so Xia Huanhuan didn't refuse. There were 5 more mouths to feed for dinner, and the ingredients just prepared were not enough. The raw beef was directly made into a stir-fried beef with onions. The mutton was boiled into mutton soup, and the mutton was taken out, sliced, and eaten with the sauce. The mutton soup was used to make noodles. The noodles were also topped with mushrooms and wild pheasant, as well as the previously made bacon and radish stewed with vermicelli and winter bamboo shoots and bacon, and a few steamed buns with mixed noodles. In addition, a few sweet potatoes were roasted, and steamed mushrooms and eggs were made for the kids. Grandpa Fu Weixin, and Fu Nanjing felt a little relieved when they saw the rich dishes on the table. But then they thought that Huanhuan must have been entertaining guests, and they also brought beef, mutton, and other things with them, so they made such a rich meal. Normally, they would probably eat steamed buns with pickles. Thinking of this possibility, the 3 generations of the Fu family felt distressed. The triplets held their small bowls and ate 3 pieces of beef with chopsticks, while their 3 pairs of clear eyes stared at the 3 generations of the Fu family. Then, Yi couldn't help it, turned his head to look at Xia Huanhuan, pointed at Fu Nanjing with his little hand, and said, "Mom, they bad people." The 2-year-old child couldn't speak clearly, but everyone at the dinner table understood these words. The meat in Fu Nanjing's bowl suddenly lost its fragrance. What did he do? Why was he identified as a bad person? No, he was still a child, he couldn't be angry. Yi, how could third uncle be a bad guy? That's right. The dough figurines your mom brought back for you a few days ago were all bought by me. If third uncle was a bad guy, why would he buy dough figurines for you? Xiao Wu's eyes lit up when he heard this. Sun Wukong. So Sun Wukong was bought by you, uncle. The triplets heard this, although they didn't know anything else, but they understood Sun Wukong, so they all shouted happily. Sun Wukong.
And
Zhu Beiji. Fu Nanjing looked at the little kids with a smile and said, yes. And Zhu Beiji. When you come to Beijing in the future, third uncle will buy it for you, okay? Xia Huanhuan was sure that she heard it clearly this time. Fu Nanjing called himself third uncle, not third uncle. No matter how the relationship between generations is calculated, the Fu family should be closer to Li Zhan, and, according to his side, he should be called third uncle. Third uncle. What does that mean? Fu Weixin and old master Fu glared at Fu Nanjing unhappily. This rascal actually bought dough figurines for the kids behind their backs, but how did he buy them and give them to them? When did you buy the dough figurines?
Fu Weixin asked.
Fu Nanjing said, "Oh, a few days ago. Huanhuan came back from the northwest to see Li Zhan and took the train to Beijing. I went to pick her up and sent her on the train home, so I bought it by the way." Old Master Fu.
Fu Weixin.
Fu Weixin. Stinky boy, Huanhuan came to Beijing. Why didn't you let her come to your house? Fu Nanjing looked innocent and said, "Dad, have you forgotten what happened in our family those days?" Fu Weixin was speechless. Li Sankai and Li Ernie happened to come to Beijing to make trouble for money those 2 days. Although he agreed to it in order to buy time to investigate the truth of the matter, it was indeed not appropriate to let Huanhuan come to his house. Old Master Fu asked with concern, "One girl, did you go to the northwest to find Li Zhan? Did you go alone?" Most people in the northwest are warm and hospitable, but after all, the people are tough and the land is vast and sparsely populated. Li Zhan and his men went there because of the snowstorm and the rampant bandits. How could Xia Huanhuan, a weak woman, go there alone?
Fu Weixin also said, "Yes.
You must transfer from Beijing to the northwest. Why didn't you tell us when you arrived in Beijing? Let Nanjing accompany you. It will be safer than you going alone." Fu Nanjing said, "Grandpa, Dad, don't be so hindsight. I have already said these things last time." Old Master Fu and Fu Weixin looked at Fu Nanjing in unison. He cursed silently. "What's the matter? You are allowed to pretend to be a warm brother in front of your sister? It's not allowed for them to care about their granddaughter and their own daughter? Fu Nanjing was a little scared by the two elders' stares. He chuckled twice and lowered his head to eat noodles. Xia Huanhuan smiled and said, "Although it is the new year, I thought you must be busy with work. Third brother is in the hospital, so he must be on duty. In the northwest, I have already asked the military contact point in the county to send a telegram to Li Zhan's temporary station. When I got off the car in Ho Hot, the troops came to pick me up, so there is nothing to worry about." Of course, she couldn't tell them that she had trekked in the snow for several days to find Xinwan Xue and Rong Zhenbong and then encountered horse thieves. The 3 generations of the Fu family heard that someone would pick them up in Ho Hot, and now they are back safely, so that's fine. After dinner, Xia Huanhuan was busy arranging accommodation for them. However, Mr. Fu refused and planned to live in a guest house in the county. Xia Huanhuan's wing rooms have been built, so there are 2 bedrooms in the main house, 2 wing rooms, and the 2 rooms of Xiaowen's father. There is definitely enough space to live in. However, it is winter now, and it is not like summer when you can just have a mat to sleep on. With so many people, bedding is a big problem. Xia Huanhuan listened and did not force it. She naturally had enough quilts in her space. Last time, she took out a set for Li Zhan's eldest sister Li Zhaodi, and she could also use Li Zhan's allowance and say that the family was well off to get away with it. Now there are 5 or 6 grown men, and even if she took out 3 beds, it would not be in line with her current identity and personality, and people would be suspicious. However, before Fu Weixin and the others got up and left, Xia Huanhuan smiled and suddenly asked, "But Grandpa Fu, Uncle Fu, third brother Fu, I always feel that you came at the right time today, and you came with my father. My father seemed to know you, but how did you know each other?" Fu Weixin was stunned by the question. When he just entered the door, he hesitated and didn't say it out loud. He thought about coming back tomorrow and telling Huanhuan first to take her and the kids, as well as Xia Shuangshan and Lin Yiru, to Beijing, transfer her household registration, find her a job, and wait until Huanhuan gets closer to the Fu family before telling her that he is her biological father. Now he was caught off guard by the question, and a flash of panic flashed in his eyes. Old Master Fu glanced at his son and said nothing. After all, this is Fu Weixin's daughter. As a grandfather, he has to respect his son's ideas even if he wants to recognize his granddaughter. Fu Nanjing was impatient and said, "Hey, let's stop guessing like a riddle. Just tell us everything." Then he looked at Xia Huanhuan and said, "Huanhuan, you are actually my biological sister, my parents are your parents, and the old man is naturally your grandfather." "Nanjing," Fu Weixin scolded and looked at Xia Huanhuan with his heart in his throat. Fu Nanjing said, "Dad, don't stare at me. It wasn't me who almost fainted when I answered the phone at home and came here in a hurry." Xia Huanhuan listened to Fu Nanjing's words. Although she had already guessed something vaguely in her heart, she was still quite surprised when the mystery was solved. No wonder Fu Nanjing always asked the kids to call him third uncle. If she was Fu Nanjing's sister, it would make sense. I didn't expect that there would be such a coincidence in the world. The Fu family is obviously Li Zhan's relatives. How come they became her family? Lin Yiru was surprised and shouted, "Oh my god. Is this true? You are really Wanner's relatives? What is going on?" Xia Shuangshan nodded to Lin Yiru and said, "Wanner, they found me first and told me the whole story of how you got lost. It's not that they don't want you. They have been looking for you for many years and have never given up. Your biological mother." Alas. The 3 people from the Fu family were a little confused when they saw that Xia Huanhuan didn't respond. Fu Nanjing whispered, "Huanhuan, can you say something?" Now he regretted that he was too impatient. His father's plan was safer. They could build up their relationship first, and then talk about recognizing each other as relatives. Huanhuan would be easier to accept psychologically. Fu Weixin coughed twice and whispered, "Huanhuan, I know I have let you down and made you suffer a lot over the years. If you refuse to recognize me, Dad, I won't blame you. Don't feel any psychological burden." Xia Huanhuan pondered for a moment and said, "This matter is too sudden. Give me some time to think about it." Old man Fu said, "Wei Xian, let's go back to the county first. It's such a big thing. Let's give the child some time to think about it carefully. Fu Weixin also knew this was the truth. Someone suddenly showed up and said that he was her biological father and that he had lost her more than 20 years ago. It was too much to ask her to accept it immediately and recognize him happily. After the Fu family left, Xia Shuangshan told Xia Huanhuan what Fu Weixin had told him, how Huanhuan got lost, his mother's affairs, and the evil deeds done by the vicious woman Sun Chunhua. After hearing this, Lin Yuru sighed. Oh, so that's what happened. That Sun Chunhua really brings shame to us rural people. How could she be so mean? She even wanted to harm a newborn baby. However, I just can't understand it. The Fu family kindly took her in to help at home. Huan's biological mother gave birth to a daughter, so shouldn't she help take care of the child? How could she be so cruel? Is she lazy and doesn't want to take care of the child? Xia Shuangshan was also puzzled this. I can't figure it out either. Xia Huanhuan's heart moved and she asked, Dad, have they told us about their daughter? Xia Shuangshan was stunned for a moment. Their daughter? I haven't heard about it. They said that your biological mother gave birth to 3 sons, and the last one was you. Because you were stolen when you were just a few days old, your biological mother was ill for 2 years and died of illness.
How?
Could there be another daughter in his family? Xia Huanhuan nodded and said, Well, you have also seen her. She was an educated youth in our village 2 years ago. Her name is Fu Qingye. The Fu family came to recognize their relatives. Why didn't they tell about Fu Qingye? Also, if what they told Xia Shuangshan is true, isn't Fu Qingye the biological daughter of the Fu family? Then where did she come from? Lin Yuru hesitated and said, Could it be that after they lost Wana, they felt sad and gave birth to another daughter? Xia Shuangshan frowned. If this is true, then this family is too unkind. Why don't you tell me the truth? There is nothing to hide about this. Would I not let our Wana recognize them just because they gave birth to another daughter? Xia Shuangshan felt a little regretful. If he had known that Wana was not their only daughter, he might not have agreed so readily. Isn't it obvious who is closer? The daughter who was raised at home since childhood, and the daughter who was lost for many years and was finally taken home? If Wana is recognized by them, she will be neglected and treated biasly by them. Then no matter how good the family is. Thinking of this, Xia Shuangshan still hesitated. The Fu family can let their daughter transfer to a city household registration and become a city dweller. Seeing the uncertainty on Xia Shuangshan's face, Xia Huanhuan smiled and said, Dad, I just asked casually. I heard from Li Zhan that Fu Qingye is 1 year older than me and may not be their biological daughter.
Oh.
Xia Shuangshan felt a little better. Lin Yuru also said, If that girl is not their biological daughter, it would be better. Xia Huanhuan did not comment. Feelings are cultivated over many years. Even if she has a blood relationship with the Fu family, in fact, there is no difference between them and strangers. When she and Fu Qingye really fought, she did not dare to expect the Fu family to stand on her side instead of Fu Qingye, who had raised her for more than 20 years. Mom, let's not talk about this for now. We've been tossing around all night. Let's go to bed first. Dad, don't go back in the dark tonight. Just stay here. Xia Shuangshan nodded and said, That's fine. No words were spoken that night. Early the next morning, Fu Nanjing came over before breakfast. However, this time Fu Weixin and Old Man Fu did not come together. The triplets were still dragging Xiao Wen, Xiao Wu, and the others to the yard, feeding the chickens and sheep. They were squatting on the ground, watching Xia Huanhuan carefully as she squeezed the goat's milk with a milk bucket. The gate of the yard was open. As soon as Fu Nanjing entered, he saw 3 little guys wearing bulky little cotton-padded jackets and hats squatting in a row, like 3 chubby little bears, and instructing Xia Huanhuan to do her work confidently. Mom, Grandma has peed.
Mom, the sheep
Is running. Running.
Catch it. Fu Nanjing laughed.
How can there be such cute little guys in the world? When Xia Huanhuan heard the noise, she looked up in surprise. Fu Nanjing waved at her and said with a smile, Good morning. You haven't had breakfast yet, right? Xia Huanhuan. The triplets turned around in unison, and after seeing Fu Nanjing, they pointed at him, then turned to look at Xia Huanhuan and said, "Mom, bad guy." Beibei and Xiaowu, who were collecting eggs in the chicken coop, came out with the eggs. Beibei said like a little adult, "Yan Yan, didn't sister tell you that you should be polite to adults and not call them bad guys?" Yan Yan looked up, looked at Beibei in confusion, and then hesitantly corrected, Bad uncle?" Xiao said, "Stupid. It's not uncle, it's uncle. You should call him bad uncle." When the triplets heard it, they all realized, oh, bad uncle.
Fu Nanzeng's mouth twitched.
What bad uncle? That's the third uncle. Okay. Lin Yuru heard the noise and walked out of the kitchen. Xiaowen, who was helping to light the fire, also poked his head out. Seeing that it was him, Lin Yuru smiled and said, "Oh, isn't this the Comrade Fu, who came last night? We haven't yet. We're making it. Have you eaten yet?" Fu Nanjing grinned and said, "Aunt Ru, good morning. I haven't eaten yet either." Xia Huanhuan. You don't have breakfast this early in the morning, and you rush to visit other people's homes at mealtime, and you're quite proud of it. Lin Yuru was stunned for a moment, and didn't react. What? Did you call me? Fu Nanjing smiled and said, "Aunt Ru. Aren't you Lin Yuru? What a nice name. I'll take the liberty of calling you Aunt Ru. Is that okay with you?" Lin Yuru was called Xiao Ru and Yuru by her family when she was a girl. After she married Xia Shuangshan, the two met through a blind date. They were almost strangers, and both of them were dull. They called each other you. After they had a child, they called each other the father of the child and the mother of the child. Now, she is half buried in the ground. She couldn't help feeling embarrassed when she was suddenly called Auntie Ru by this handsome young man from the city. But she was obviously happy. Her face was beaming with joy and a blush. She kept saying, "Hey, you can call me anything. If you haven't eaten yet, just join us." Fu Nanjing grinned even brighter. "Okay. Auntie Ru, don't call me Comrade Fu. It's strange. Just call me Nanjing." Lin Yuru gathered the hair by her ears and smiled. "Oh, how can I feel embarrassed?" Fu Nanjing smiled and said, "I'm not embarrassed. Huanhuan is my sister, and you are Huanhuan's mother, so am I not also your junior? We will be a family in the future, so please don't be estranged." Xia Huanhuan. Lin Yuru was deeply moved after hearing this. This child is really good. Although he is a city dweller, he has no heirs at all. If Huanhuan goes to the city in the future, she will not suffer any loss with such a brother to protect her. She smiled and said, "Okay. Then Aunt Ru will not be polite to you. By the way, Nanjing, why didn't your father and grandfather come?" Fu Nanjing smiled and said, "Oh, they said they were afraid that they were the elders, and if they came again today, they were afraid of putting too much pressure on Huanhuan, so they went back to Beijing first. I happen to be on vacation these 2 days, and there is nothing else to do when I go back, so I thought about staying here for a few days and then going back." As he said, he looked around and asked, "Aunt Ru, where is my uncle Xia? Why can't I see him? Did he go back to Xia village last night?" Lin Yuru smiled and said no. He couldn't sit still, so he went into the mountains early in the morning to see if the traps he set had caught any hares or pheasants, and he came back soon. Fu Nanjing smiled and said, "So that's how it is. Tomorrow, I will follow Uncle Xia into the mountains to learn how to hunt. I just listened to Li Zhan's talk, and I really don't have any chance to experience it myself." As he said that, Fu Nanjing walked towards Xia Huanhuan and said with a smile, "Huanhuan, let me help you get the goat milk to the kitchen." He said sunnily, "Aunt Ru, wait a minute. I'll wash my hands and go over to help you make breakfast." Xia Huanhuan watched Fu Nanjing's sweet words and warm heart throughout the whole process. In a short while, he coaxed her mother to be so happy that her face was flushed, and she was convinced in her heart. Lin Yuru smiled and said, "Hey, go to the main room and sit down. Where are the guests busy?" Fu Nanjing said, "Aunt Ru, you are so formal. You should treat me the same as Huanhuan, and you should use me when you need to." As he said this, he had already put the bucket of goat milk on the chopping board, washed his hands, and rolled up his sleeves. Xiaowen had already recognized Fu Nanjing as the uncle who treated them to roast duck when Xia Huanhuan took them to Beijing City before. Today, he blushed and called him Uncle Fu. He felt quite guilty. Yesterday, he mistook Fu Nanjing for a bad guy because he didn't remember it all of a sudden. Until now, the three younger brothers Yan Yan, Ye, and Yao Yao have not changed their way of addressing him. Fu Nanjing smiled and said, "Be good. But call me third uncle from now on." Xiaowen glanced at Xia Huanhuan, who came in later, and said nothing. Breakfast was still the usual style. Millet and sweet potato porridge, sweet potato and white flour steamed buns, a plate of pickled radish, a spinach scrambled egg, 10 boiled eggs, and a plate of winter bamboo shoots and meat. In addition, goat milk was boiled, and each family member had a small bowl. Fu Nanjing was surprised. The food is not bad, probably better than what his family eats in Beijing. Fu Nanjing was washing spinach while smiling and asking, "Aunt Ru, is the allowance that Li Zhan sends back every month enough? There are so many people in the family, and the food and clothes cost a lot of money." Xia Huanhuan quickly took over the conversation and said with a smile, "Not bad. It's enough. You see, a lot of things are cooked, but in fact they are all free of charge. For example, the winter bamboo shoots are dug from the mountains and dried into dried bamboo shoots. The meat was brought by you last night. When my father and Li Zhan come back, they will also go hunting in the mountains. If they are lucky, they can hunt roe deer or wild boar, and the meat is made into bacon, which can be eaten for a long time. There are also eggs and goat milk, all from the chickens and sheep raised at home. Spinach, radish, cabbage, etc. are grown in their own private plots." Fu Nanjing thought about it, and it seemed to be true. Unlike in the city, even a leaf of vegetable had to be bought with money. Breakfast was ready soon, and Xia Shuangshan also came back. As soon as he entered the yard, he said loudly, "I'm back." After hearing this, several little guys flew over and shouted happily in unison, "Grandpa." Xia Shuangshan's heart melted, and he smiled. "Hey, Grandpa is lucky today. The trap he set caught 2 rabbits." Ever since Xia Huanhuan regularly released wild rabbits, pheasants, wild roe deer, and the like from the space into the mountains, the nearby villages almost always had a harvest every time they went up the mountain to hunt. It was the first time that Fu Nanjing saw a wild rabbit caught by a hunter, and it was also very fresh. He smiled and said, "Uncle Xia, you're so awesome. This wild rabbit is so fat. Tomorrow, I will go into the mountains with you, and you must teach me how to hunt." Xia Shuangshan looked at Fu Nanjing in astonishment. This Fu family member came again early in the morning? Because the Fu family concealed Fu Qingye's affairs, Xia Shuangshan was a little cold to Fu Nanjing. Why are you here?" Lin Yiru poked her head out, and hearing his cold tone, she began to protect Fu Nanjing and said, "What you said is true. Nanjing is Waner's biological brother. What's wrong with him coming to our house to see his sister?" Xia Shuangshan. Why is his wife so ungrateful? Xia Shuangshan wanted to put the 2 wild rabbits in a wooden cage for a few days and kill them when they were ready to eat. Then he washed his hands, and the family sat down to eat. Fu Nanjing praised Lin Yiru's cooking skills sweetly, which made Lin Yiru embarrassed and happy. Xia Shuangshan ate in silence for a long time and finally couldn't help it and asked, "You have a sister named Fu Qingye in your family. What's the matter with your sister? Why didn't you tell me when you came to see me yesterday?" Lin Yiru heard Xia Shuangshan's heavy tone and said, "Don't be so harsh. You scared people." Xia Shuangshan. His wife was indeed not right today. Xia Shuangshan glanced at Lin Yiru and said, "Don't interrupt. That Fu Qingye. Is she the girl your family adopted after Waner could not be found? If so, if Waner came to your house, could you treat her well and not be partial to Fu Qingye?" When Fu Nanjing heard Xia Shuangshan mention it, his face became serious and he said, "Uncle Xia, the matter of Qingye. We were wrong. I didn't think of introducing you to the basic situation and members of our family yesterday, but I promise that my grandfather, my father, and I have no intention of hiding it. Qingye was indeed adopted by my family, but that was before Huanhuan was born." As he said that, Fu Nanjing told him about the fact that Xiao Wenhui adopted the orphan Fu Qingye when he went to work in the countryside. After hearing this, Xia Shuangshan's tone softened a little. If Huan was adopted before she was born, there would be nothing we could do about it. However, when Huan arrives at your home, you will not favor Fu Qingye and bully Huan, right? I'll be frank with you. If your family dares to bully my Huan, I will fight you to the death. Xia Huan was moved and said with a smile, Dad, look at what you said. I haven't agreed to recognize my relatives yet. Who said I'm going to the Fu family? Fu Nanjing glanced at Xia Huan and said with a smile, Grandpa and Dad have said that there's no rush for this matter. Huan, you can think about it as long as you want. However, you have to consider it your biological father. If you still have to consider it before recognizing me, your third brother, I'll be sad. Xia Huan was speechless for a moment. In fact, all her bad impressions of the Fu family were because of Fu Qingye. She hesitated about recognizing her relatives because Fu Qingye was in the Fu family and she didn't want to be called a sister to Fu Qingye at all. Seeing that she didn't say anything, Fu Nanjing sighed softly and said, By the way, Huan, when it's warmer after the new year, you can come to Beijing and live for a while. If you don't want to live at home, our family has a small courtyard in Beijing, which can be cleaned up for you to live with your children for a few days. As for your household registration, you can transfer it to a city household registration first, and then wait for the street office to find a job for you. Xia Huan was stunned for a moment, and then said vaguely, The matter of transferring household registration. I will discuss it with Li Zhan when he comes back. I'm used to staying in the countryside and being wild. If I really have to go to the city to be a worker, I may not be able to adapt. Moreover, there are 6 little kids at home. If I go to work, no one will take care of them. Fu Nanjing meant well, and in this era, transferring from a rural household registration to an urban household registration is a very tempting good thing for anyone. She couldn't refuse directly and embarrass him just because she didn't care about the urban household registration. Fu Nanjing thought about it and knew that what Xia Huan said was the truth. Moreover, she might still be concerned about Fu Qingye and had some reservations. She didn't want to benefit from the Fu family before she even recognized her relationship with him. That's fine. Such a big thing needs to be discussed with Li Zhan. Fu Nanjing smiled and ended the topic. After dinner, Fu Nanjing rolled up his sleeves again, helped chop firewood, clean the snow on the roof, and took the 6 little guys to play Eagle Catches Chicken with him. In less than half an hour, the 6 little guys had become familiar with him and chased him and giggled. Even the name was successfully changed, from Bad Uncle to Third Uncle. The lotus pond outside was now covered with thick ice. Fu Nanjing got 3 small chairs, strung them together with ropes, and let the 6 little guys take turns sitting on them. He ran all over the ice. Lin Yuru watched Fu Nanjing playing with the children and whispered, Wanner, I think your biological parents are not bad people. Even if there is an adopted daughter, we just don't bother her or ignore her in the future. This relationship, just recognize it. There is also the matter of household registration. Even if you don't consider yourself, you have to think about the children. If you transfer, they can also transfer with you. Then it will be better than working in the fields with their backs to the sky and looking for food. Xia Huan smiled and said, Mom, I have some thoughts about this matter. I didn't say I don't recognize it.
Li Zhan is not at home now.
I will discuss it with him when he comes back. It's good to transfer the household registration and move the family to the city, but there are many things to consider. Lin Yuru was relieved when she heard that she meant to recognize her relatives and smiled. That's fine. Wait until Li Zhan comes back. You two can discuss it. In Beijing, Sun Chunhua has confessed everything, including her motive at the time, that she was afraid that the Fu family would send her and Fu Qingye back to the countryside after they had a daughter, so she was temporarily obsessed. Fu Weixin went to see Sun Chunhua the next day after returning to Beijing. Sun Chunhua was disheveled and haggard. After seeing Fu Weixin, she knelt down with a plop. Brother Fu, I really know I was wrong. I was just bewildered at that time. Later, you have been so good to me and Qingye for so many years. I regret it so much.
But Li Ernie told me that the child was dead.
I could only keep it a secret.
But now.
The child is still alive, right? Brother Fu, please forgive me for the fact that I have worked hard for the Fu family for more than 20 years.
I don't want to.
I don't want to go to jail. I'm so old once I go to jail.
With
a clear slap, Sun Chunhua was immediately slapped with blood at the corner of her mouth and fell to the ground. Fu Weixin was so angry that he trembled all over, and his palms ached slightly. He really didn't expect that there would be such a selfish beast in the world. Sun Chunhua, you still have the nerve to ask for forgiveness? Wenhui was so kind to take you in, and our Fu family has always treated you well. This is how you repay us. If it weren't for Li Ernie's family's greed for money and selling the child to make money, my daughter, who is only a few days old. As he said that, Fu Weixin thought of that possibility, and he was furious. He grabbed Sun Chunhua's hair and slapped her several times. I, Fu Weixin, have never hit a woman in my life, but these slaps today are for the dead Wenhui. Sun Chunhua, it's just that you have to spend the rest of your life in prison, which is already cheap enough for you. After that, Fu Weixin glared at Sun Chunhua with hatred and turned away. After a while, the comrades from the police station came in and escorted Sun Chunhua back to the cell. Everyone turned a blind eye to her face that was beaten into a pig's head. This is because Chief Fu is too upright. If there was a thing lurking in their family for more than 20 years, murdering their daughter, and causing their wife to become sick and die early, they would not care whether she was a woman or not, and would beat her half to death. Fu Nanjing was kept at Lin Yuru's house that night because of his sunny and handsome smile. The wild rabbit that Xia Shuangshan caught from the mountain in the morning was peeled that night. Half of it was stir-fried with onions, and the other half was cooked with radish cubes and old tofu to make rabbit soup, which was so delicious. Fu Nanjing's impression of rural life has also changed. He feels that if he stays here for a few more days, he will probably be reluctant to go back. Early the next morning, he really followed Xia Shuangshan into the mountains to hunt. He was lucky that day and actually caught a wild roe deer for them. Fu Nanjing's eyes lit up with excitement. He followed Xia Shuangshan in the yard to learn how to skin animals, cut meat, and tanned animal skins. As for pickling meat, stuffing sausages, stuffing blood sausages, etc., that was the job of Lin Yuru and Xia Huanhuan. The kids also excitedly surrounded the adults, looking here and there, and were extremely happy. On the third day, Fu Nanjing had to go back. Lin Yuru packed up the newly pickled meat and a few sausages and blood sausages for him, as well as a few pieces of tanned roe deer skins, hare skins, etc., and insisted that he take them back home. Fu Nanjing tried his best to refuse. Aunt Ru, how can this be? Life in the countryside is hard to begin with. We always have wages and tickets in Beijing, and we can buy enough supplies so we won't starve. We finally killed a roe deer, and I'm going to eat and take it away. What's a big deal? Lin Yuru insisted on pushing it to him, saying, I know you have enough in the city. But these are freshly made in our countryside, and you may not be able to buy them in the city even if you have money and tickets. This is what Wanner said. I want to bring it to you. If you think that the things we country people make are not clean, then don't take it. After saying this, and it was his own sister who asked him to bring it, how could Fu Nanjing dare not refuse, and smiled. Aunt Ru, look at what you said. How can I not know your and Huanhuan's cooking skills? Fine, then I'll accept it, and just in time to take it home and let Grandpa and my dad have a taste. They will be happy. The triplets have become familiar with Fu Nanjing. Now they probably realize that Fu Nanjing is leaving, so they all ran over, hugged his legs, and cried so sadly.
Wow.
Third uncle, don't go.
Wow.
Sanzuzu. Ye's pronunciation was still a little unclear, but it did not stop him from crying loudly. Sanzuzu. Yao Yao followed his second brother's cry, and also started crying.
Funanseng.
Xiaowu and Beibei also wiped their tears. Xiaowu said vaguely, Third uncle, next time you come, remember to bring Sun Wukong with you. Woo. When Beibei heard this, she also hurriedly said, and Beibei's Chang'e.
Funanseng.
This little rascal only remembers Sun Wukong, right? Bebe. Bebe is cute and she is a girl, so she is cute no matter what you say. Xiaowen felt a little uncomfortable, but he still advised his brothers and sisters like a little adult. Don't cry, it's not like third uncle won't come again in the future. Xia Huanhuan sighed. It was only 2 or 3 days, and even the name of Xiaowen was changed. However, she didn't stop it. She squatted down helplessly and smiled. Okay. Your eldest brother is right. Third uncle will come again in the future. But if you keep crying, third uncle won't come. Fu Nanjing's eyes lit up when he heard it, and he said happily, Huan.
You
are willing to recognize me as your third brother? Xia Huanhuan looked up at Fu Nanjing and didn't say anything, which was considered as tacit agreement. Fu Nanjing laughed and said, Hee. Huan, if Li Zhan dares to bully you in the future, just tell your third brother, and he'll help you beat him up. Xia Huanhuan couldn't help laughing and said, Isn't he your brother? Are you willing to beat him up? We were brothers before, but now we are downgraded to brother-in-law. So, my sister must be more important. As they talked, Xia Huanhuan sent him to the village entrance. Fu Nanjing suddenly remembered something and asked, By the way, do you know Luo Cheng? Xia Huanhuan was startled for a moment, and a flash of panic flashed across her face, but she immediately regained her composure, shook her head, and said, I don't know her. Who is Luo Cheng? Why do you suddenly mention her? Fu Nanjing looked at her and said, Luo Cheng is my childhood friend. I saw a girl who looked like you leaving his courtyard that day. If you don't know her, I guess I saw her wrongly. But Li Zhan's brothers seemed to have run into him when they were checking for jade, and Li Zhan even went to find Luo Cheng once. Xia Huanhuan's heart tightened when she heard this.
Li Zhan
found out something? No wonder he suddenly asked her out of the blue that day at the Northwest Garrison if she had any secrets from him. Fu Nanjing smiled and said, I made an excuse about the jade thing, saying that you asked me, and I asked Luo Cheng to help buy it on the black market. Anyway, no matter what it is, don't let it slip. Xia Huanhuan glanced at Fu Nanjing and said nothing. Fu Nanjing thought for a while and still said, Huan, Li Zhan is a good man. If you have anything, don't play dumb between husband and wife. Guessing will cause rifts. It's better to talk it out if you can. Xia Huanhuan gathered her hair and smiled. Thank you. Third brother, I know. After seeing Fu Nanjing off, Xia Huanhuan turned back, feeling a little worried.
Li Zhan.
Did she doubt herself? How much did he guess? When she got home, Lin Yuru called her and interrupted her thoughts.
Hua, look.
Lin Yuru held a roll of the big unity in her hand. There were 15 sheets, which was 150 yuan. There was also a note. Alas, Nanjing is so polite. Why did he leave so much money? He hasn't gone far, has he? Hurry up and ask your dad to go over and give it back to him. Xia Huanhuan took the note and looked at it. It said, This is from the old man and dad. If you want it, you can return it to them in person when you come to Beijing. Xia Huanhuan couldn't help but feel a little touched. After all, it wasn't her biological parents' fault that she was lost. For so many years, the original owner didn't know that she was not their biological child, but they knew all the time that their biological daughter was lost. Speaking of suffering, they suffered much more than her. And they did try hard to make it up to her. Mom, forget it. The note said that it was left by the elders of the Fu family. He just passed it on. Besides, everyone has gone far away. When Lin Yuru heard that it was given by Grandpa Fu and Fu Weixin, she said, Your grandfather and biological father gave it. That's fine. It's not a loss to keep it. Fu Nanjing returned to Beijing. When Grandpa Fu and Fu Weixin saw what Fu Nanjing brought back, they were naturally very happy. Huan is a very filial girl. She is a good child. Let's have roe deer meat for lunch today, Grandpa Fu said with a smile. Fu Weixin also laughed and said, It's filial piety. Let alone this game, we really can't eat it in the city. Even her mother.
Oh.
It would be great if her mother could eat it. Fu Nanjing heard it and hurriedly said, Oh.
Dad.
Look at you. Why are you talking about this again? When it's ready, let's save some and send some to my mother to try. Fu Weixin glared at Fu Nanjing and said, You little rascal, Are you lecturing me? By the way, have you done what I asked you to do? Fu Nanjing sighed and said, I left the money that you and Grandpa asked me to leave for her smoothly. But she didn't agree to let Huan Huan come to Beijing and transfer her household registration. She said she wanted to discuss it with Li Zhan first. Fu Weixin and Old Man Fu heard it and said, That's fine. Such a big thing needs to be discussed with that kid Li Zhan. That's it. Fu Nanjing said hesitantly. What is it? Why are you keeping it a secret? Tell me now.
Fu Weixin asked anxiously.
Fu Nanjing said, Huan Huan seems to care about Qingye. It is probably because when Li Zhan just got married, Qingye went to find Li Zhan and later went to Li Zhan's hometown to join the team. Fu Weixin was a little slow in this regard. He was stunned for a moment and asked, Didn't Qingye say that she had a good relationship with Huan Huan over there? Besides, how is Li Zhan involved? What's wrong with Li Zhan?
Fu Nanzeng.
Dad, you really can't see it? Grandpa Fu said at this time. Speaking of which, Qingye is not young anymore. 25, right? Daughters are not like sons. It's time for them to start a family. Weixin, see if there is anyone of the right age and good character over there, and arrange for Qingye to meet. Fu Weixin was stunned after realizing it belatedly. You mean, Qingye likes Li Zhan? This. How is it possible? Didn't Qingye always regard Li Zhan as a brother? Fu Nanjing was still helpless. Dad, even though you treat Li Zhan like your own son, he has no blood relationship with our family after all. Even if he does, it doesn't matter to Qingye. Fu Weixin opened his mouth and was greatly shocked.
No wonder.
Qingye was so mean to Huan Huan when Huan Huan and Li Zhan came last time. It turns out, it's like this. Fu Nanjing smiled and said, My grandfather is right. I think Qingye should get married quickly, and maybe Huan Huan will have no worries. Fu Weixin glared at Fu Nanjing and said, Don't talk about Qingye all the time. Take care of yourself first. Fu Nanjing's expression froze for a moment, and then he said, Dad, this is about my sister. Why do you involve me? Oh, by the way, I still have to go to the hospital for duty. I'm leaving first. Save some of the roe deer meat for me tonight. Fu Weixin wanted to say something, but was stopped by Grandpa Fu. Forget it. This kid is probably still waiting for the girl from Yu's family. Fu Weixin sighed. Now these things no one knows when they will end. Does he really have to wait a lifetime? Grandpa Fu smiled and said, Like father, like son. After Wen Hui passed away, didn't you refuse to marry again? Dad, can it be the same? Fu Weixin was still very concerned about introducing a date to Fu Qingye. No matter how many bad things Sun Chunhua did, although Fu Qingye was her niece, she was adopted and raised by the Fu family after all. He still had the responsibility to find a good home for her. After choosing for a long time, he finally chose an honest and capable man named Xiao Zhao, who was about the same age as Fu Qingye. He was also very energetic and was currently the deputy battalion commander. He did an excellent job, but his family registration was not in Beijing but in a small city, and his parents were ordinary workers. After arranging for Fu Qingye and Xiao Zhao to meet, Fu Qingye began to resent Fu Weixin in her heart. This was for his own daughter, but she, the goddaughter, was going to be kicked out immediately. If he had introduced her to a good one, that would have been fine. There are so many children of high-ranking officials in Beijing. Which one is good? Why did he have to introduce her to a person from a small city outside the province, whose parents had no background at all? Was this for her own good? Is this the plan to make her suffer for the rest of her life after marrying him? Even though she liked Li Zhan before and Li Zhan's background wasn't that great, Li Zhan was dozens of times more handsome than this Xiao Zhao. Moreover, both the Fu family and the military district valued Li Zhan very much. He became the head of a troop at that age, so he will definitely stay in Beijing in the future and have a bright future. Can this country bumpkin Xiao Zhao compare to him? Fu Qingye was too ambitious and didn't recognize her own conditions. There were many children of high-ranking officials in Beijing, but they looked down on her. Even though she was the adopted daughter of the Fu family, her appearance was in stark contrast to the high-looking people of the Fu family. The reason why she was able to become the second-ranked pillar of the city art troupe was actually mostly because of the face of the Fu family. Otherwise, after she returned to the city, she would not have. She was directly arranged to sit on the bench. Apart from anything else, if she had a face that was 1/10 as beautiful as Xia Huanhuan, she would be able to become the pillar of the stage again in minutes as soon as she returned to the city. Among those children of large families in Beijing who are too picky, there are also a few who are not too picky and may date her for the sake of her being the adopted daughter of the Fu family. Most of the soldiers under Fu Weixin are from other places, and most of them have rural household registration. Those with Beijing household registration have all married early. Therefore, he really didn't deliberately pick a bad one for Fu Qingye. He really did his best to pick one. Xiao Zhao was actually quite satisfied with Fu Qingye and was willing to continue to have contact with her. As a result, Fu Qingye turned around and found someone for himself. When Fu Weixin knew who she was looking for, he was so angry that he almost slapped her in the face. Who is she looking for? Those who work in that field take people to copy from one place to another every day. They have been very prosperous in recent years, but they are the most despised. Although the Fu family has been trying to protect themselves in recent years, they are still keeping a distance from those people and despise them in their hearts. Now Fu Qingye has found such a person? This is simply a slap in the face of his Fu family. Break up with her immediately. If you don't like Xiao Zhao, Dad will introduce you to someone better. Our family never messes with that kind of person. Fu Qingye sneered. Find me another good one? Dad, don't be hypocritical here. Now that you have found your own daughter, you are determined to drive me out, aren't you? Don't say it as if you are thinking about me. Fu Weixin didn't expect Fu Qingye to say such hurtful words. But thinking that he had not properly educated this adopted daughter for so many years, he had the idea of driving her out because he was afraid that they would recognize Huanhuan. Therefore, he suppressed his anger and said, Qingye, you are 25 years old this year. Go out and ask around, whose daughter is 25 and still unmarried. We are kind enough to introduce you to a partner. Why are you driving you away? If it wasn't for your third brother saying it, I wouldn't know that you were thinking about Li Zhan. Li Zhan has been married for 3 years, and his 3 sons are more than 2 years old. Are you still not giving up? Fu Qingye was hit on the sore spot in his heart and said, Ha, you are finally telling the truth. How can you find a partner for me? You are obviously afraid that I will your biological daughter's man, so you want to find a random man to get rid of me. Fu Weixin was angry. How can Xiao Zhao be just any man? He is 25 years old, at the level of deputy battalion commander, and has a clean family background. How is he not worthy of you? How is he not better than the person you found, Su Dayo? That's Su Dayo. You see how arrogant he is now in the future. When the words came to his lips, Fu Weixin still held back, then sighed again and said softly, Well, if you really don't want to leave home, wait until you and Xiao Zhao get married, and then move back home to live.
Wait.
Fu Weixin paused for a moment. The military region also has a welfare policy for housing allocation. Xiao Zhao has made special contributions and is a deputy battalion commander. Basically, as long as he submits a marriage application and decides to get married, he can get a new 1-bedroom and 1-living-room house in Beijing. You know, in that era, most of the natives of Beijing lived in the Hudong courtyards left over from the past. Each family had a small room, and sometimes even 3 generations, and more than a dozen people squeezed into a small house, which was commonly known as a large courtyard. Being able to get a newly built 1-bedroom and 1-living-room building with running water and electricity is something that ordinary people can't get even if they fight hard. Fu Weixin didn't say anything more because this matter hasn't been decided after all. If there is a variable, it will not be good at that time. It's better to wait until Fu Qingye and Xiao Zhao get married in the future. If it is approved, it will be a pleasant surprise. Fu Weixin continued, Anyway, you don't have to worry about the new house for Xiao Zhao. As for Huanhuan and Li Zhan, we will make arrangements. Is that okay? You should make it clear to Su Dayo as soon as possible and cut off contact. Fu Qingye sneered in her heart. Now she's asked to move back home? She has found out that the Fu family has another courtyard house. It has been lent to the government for so many years, so even she knows about it. If Fu Nanjing hadn't submitted materials and Su Dayo saw it and told her, she would still be kept in the dark. After the courtyard house is returned, of course, it will be for her own daughter Xia Huanhuan to live in. Although the Fu family's current residence in the compound is also a two-story building, Mr. Fu, Fu Weixin, Fu Beifa's children Fu Yuanchao and Fu Heping and even several guards are all crowded in it. Occasionally, Fu Nanjing will go home to stay for a few days. Fu Weixin agrees to let her move back after she gets married. At most, she and that Xiao Zhao can share a bedroom. Not only is it crowded, but they also have to act according to the moods of Grandpa Fu and Fu Weixin. How can it be compared with the spacious courtyard? If he really loves her and treats her as his own daughter, why doesn't he give her the courtyard as a dowry and let her live in it after marriage? Isn't it because he is thinking about his own daughter all the time? All the good things are for Xia Huanhuan. She, Fu Qingye, doesn't care about these things that Xia Huanhuan doesn't want.
Dad.
You don't have to paint a rosy picture for me. If you really love me, I've been back to Beijing for more than a year. Why don't you say a few words for me in the art troupe and let me be the main pillar? I am still on the bench. What you are unwilling to do for me, Dayo is willing to help me. Starting next month, I can perform on stage as the protagonist. Let me break up with him and marry that country bumpkin Xiao Zhao. Dream on.
Pop. A crisp sound.
Fu Weixin was so angry that he couldn't bear it any longer and slapped Fu Qingye hard. Fu Qingye fell on the sofa with blood on the corner of her mouth. She covered her face, turned her head, and glared at Fu Weixin resentfully. From childhood to adulthood, Fu Weixin had never hit her,